Good evening, everybody, and welcome to One World, One Blood Bowl, episode 34. I'm thrilled that you're joining us this evening, or joining us after this evening. And I have three lovely younger streamers with me, all streamers, all Blood Bowl players. And I'm going to ask what this youth is doing, both streaming and playing on the Fumble client. Something we haven't talked about for a while. Been a lot of changes over on Fumble, and I want to talk about that, and I want to talk about them streaming it, and I want to talk about their arrival on Fumble. So some we've met before, one is brand new to us all. Welcome one and all, thank you for joining me. Straight above me we have, of course, the lovely Dimmy G, of this borough and known on this podcast. And if you don't know him, you soon will. How, Dimmy, how are you doing, my friend?
Yeah, I'm good, PC. Thank you very much.
Now, last I heard from you, you were exclusively a tabletop player. You were done with all that online Blood Bowl stuff. It was over. It was finished. You and Blood Bowl, it was a tabletop thing from now on. How'd that work out?
I got the bug. I've got the bug back. So I think I'm one of them guys who needs breaks. Do you know what I mean? I'm pretty aware of where I am with Blood Bowl, and it's a love-hate relationship. Definitely love it, hate it, can't do without it, can't stand to bear to play it, and all that sort of thing. So I go through cycles, and I think the main thing for me now is that I'm back to wanting to learn to get better rather than just playing. Do you know what I mean? So like I've got a purpose and a reason to play. So and yeah, I'm really enjoying it. I'm almost like back to the first time you ever start playing Blood Bowl. And you know when you just like you can just play and play and play and play. Like I'm almost like there, not quite, but like almost like
And just to be really clear, is that purpose something you found in life, or have you found Jesus, or is it something that's been joined to you joining Fumble?
there. I think I didn't expect it when I started playing Fumble, but it's happened since I've been at Fumble. I think it's the honest answer.
Okay, that's
Mm.
That's a much deeper answer than the question that gave rise to it. So thank you for that. We'll perhaps cycle back to what that means when we bring the others in and talk about that sort of joint Fumble experience. But before we move forward, I think we do have to say this is the new improved Dimmy G, isn't it? You've recently had some personal travails.
This is my
In,
missus' change check.
yeah, I wasn't talking about her jean jacket. If she wants to go 3 types of denim, that's
Oh, you
that's
mean
on
this?
her.
Yeah,
I'm
yeah.
talking about your recent facial surgery,
Yeah, I had face surgery, so I
and you
had
chose
a
you chose that one.
yeah. Yeah. So, I had a bit of a lump on my face. Had to get it checked out. It was cancer, so I had to get it cut out. And you know what? I feel a lot better. I guess maybe that's a lot to do with my mood and stuff. And but yeah, yeah, definitely feeling in a much better place and everything. So,
Yeah, so jokes aside, I mean, if you've got a lump, if you've got a mole that's changing colour or changing size or
mm,
shape, just go and ask a doctor to get it checked out because skin cancer's bad, y'all. Now, talking of skin cancer, obviously the perfect time to talk to Good Day Nick. Uh, welcome to the show again, Nick. We catch
hmm
you obviously in the middle of a heat wave. You can see I'm perspiring or glowing as you have it. Dimmy, of course, hiding away in a corner of his kitchen that doesn't even show us the fridge. And Zakari, you can see the sun streaming in. I presume you're basking in sunshine as well, are you, mate?
yes, very warm over here as well. Not too different a temperature, a little from you guys, but
But the middle of your
I'm all
winter.
rugged up. Yes, I'm all rugged up. uh, a frosty 11 degrees, which I'm sure everywhere else in the world will find
Brr.
very cold.
So have you laid in the supplies and put chains on the tyres, that sort of thing?
I mean, yeah, lots of snow falling and ice and all that sort of thing. I'm sure theoretically
Now, Australia is
happens in
obviously a
winter.
dangerous land full of things longing to kill you.
hmm
And I get that in the brief, awful lives that you people have there, you want to maximise your entertainment and enjoyment because, death might be around any corner or under any rock.
Right,
Or
indeed.
annoyingly hiding right under toilet seats to bite you on the bum, I hear that. How could you live in such a land?
Do have to watch out for those. Yeah.
And I guess it's inspired by that. I once heard you say that life was just too short for the sort of graphics of Fumble. That you crave the 3D whizzy entertainment of something that's loud and proud and up in your face. And
Mm.
yet you're all over Fumble like a bad plague. How has that
Indeed.
come about? How's your Blood Bowl today? What's been taking you to Fumble?
Oh well, pretty much all my Blood Bowls on Fumble these days. There's some brief scrapings into um, the worlds of Blood Bowl 2 and Blood Bowl 3 here and there, but pretty much all on Fumble. And then quite a I think quite a reasonable amount of Blood Bowls happening there. I've just been really motivated to play. I think I've really enjoyed taking part in the Black Box Trophy. I've just done my first qualifier game for the GLT, the Grotty Little tournament, which is one of the majors on Fumble, and I had such fun in that game. It was a really close game, which I won on kicks. Lucky me. But yeah, I just really enjoying my Blood Bowl on Fumble. Well, not everyone agrees with my UI choices.
Well, we'll come to those
I
and how incredibly
found a
ugly
very
you choose to make the client look. But there we are.
Yeah, I do a bit, but I find it that the settings and the resizing of the client has made it much more approachable for myself.
Yeah.
I realize not everyone's cup of tea, but
I absolutely want to talk about all of that because there has been, as well as a streamer migration, and I think it's fair to call it that, from Blood Bowl 2 to Fumble. There's been a notable influx. At the same time, we've seen a revolution in the Fumble client. I mean, maybe not to something entirely of a new form. It hasn't, Pokemon-like evolved into something entirely different. But certainly there's a lot of settings and available choices that weren't there, say, 6 months or a year ago. And I want to talk about how many of those you're enjoying and how many of those you think might be a factor. But let's say hello to the beautiful little man in the corner of the screen. Hello, Zakara. Welcome to One World, One Blood Bowl.
Hi.
Don't look surprised. That might be nice.
Yeah. Okay. Hi. How are you doing?
I'm way too hot. I'm struggling in this heat. I'm not built for heat. I don't really like the cold either. I quite like mild. I don't know about you.
Cold is lovely. The cold is lovely because you can do something about that. You just put more layers on. The heat, you've just got to sit there and be like, it's too fucking hot, and just melt.
Now, you've also been a streamer of Blood Bowl 2. So is that where Blood Bowl began for you? Was it with Blood Bowl 2? Or?
So I played some Blood Bowl 1, but it was mostly just offline stuff. Just building a Nurgle team because it looked like fun. And Blood Bowl 2 came out. Was a complete piece. Sorry. Bug flew past it. I'm sorry. Got my windows open.
That looked massive. Are you alright?
It did. It looked like a monster.
Pretty normal size, those ones, aren't they?
Yeah.
Oh, are you saying the fly was normal and Zakara's quite small? I wasn't going to mention
Wow.
I was just going off the Aussie trope. That's normal size.
Oh, I see, yes. Yeah. Because those death
We can play it that way
mosquitoes you
too.
have and things, can't you?
So it's lovely to be here. I'll see you all later.
Hey, come on.
So Blood Bowl 2 came out, was pretty shite on launch, to be fair, and then I forgot about it until COVID happened. And then I started streaming it, and turned out people like to see someone shit at Blood Bowl shout at people for being worse.
Well, look, I don't think that's true. I mean, we might meme about it and joke about it, but you're not... I wouldn't use the term shit at Blood Bowl.
I mean, have you seen my win rate on Fumble?
What was your win rate on Blood Bowl 2? About 40%, 45, something like that, 50%?
About 55 with Islev.
So that's, I mean, by no stretch of the imagination is that shit at Blood Bowl. I mean, it may not be, Gdanik, I was very open about it, is very gifted at Blood Bowl. He's won chalices on Blood Bowl 2. He was perpetually at the top of the ladder. Not everyone is going to be, but not everyone's grown up in an environment where 4 out of 5 people get killed by redback spiders. So, there's a natural selection at play there that maybe you and I don't have. Streaming and Blood Bowl, did they come hand in hand then?
Well, I used to stream before that, and then randomly I just saw Blood Bowl was I think I just randomly saw someone streaming Blood Bowl and was like, you know what? I've remembered that game. That game exists.
So what were you streaming pre-Blood Bowl?
Fighting games a lot of the time, and auto chess. Those were auto chess.
Now, just before we came live, you were talking about your lovely children.
Yeah.
Not dissimilar age to mine, tiny bit below, but sort of, I think we cross over with a 14-year-old.
Yeah.
And they've disappointed you, haven't they? They've gone the 40k route, you think?
Yeah, they're really excited for it.
They're young,
They enjoyed Blood Bowl, but then they saw that 40k has guns and mechs and all this great looking stuff, and then they're like, Blood Bowl?
We've
And
got
that's
we've got giants and rabbits and sheep.
the only thing that's keeping them even remotely attached to it is the chainsaw. Other than that, they're kind of just like, nope, I'm out.
Yeah, my son weirdly likes the trolls. I don't know why, but trolls, nothing else really.
Yeah.
What about you? Have you ever been tempted onto the tabletop, or is it exclusively an online thing?
So I actually did paint up a Skaven team a couple of years ago. The problem is I'm really antisocial and I don't like people. So the idea of going to a tabletop event sounds like a weekend of torture.
Well, speaking on behalf of people, I mean, we don't much like you either. But
I
that's
know,
that's
that's the
true.
problem.
That's true of most people at Blood Bowl tournaments. I mean, you've been to some Blood Bowl tournaments, Timmy, haven't you? I mean, the people there. I mean, people is a bit of a stretch, isn't it? That's a large blanket we're throwing over the people that turn up to a tournament.
Well, I mean, if he's worried about being a D-head, I'm there, so you're not going to
Yeah.
be the biggest D-head in the room, are you, mate? So
This is another problem because you're going to want to go out drinking at one point, and there's only so many short jokes I can put up with while we're drinking.
But I think you'll find that when you see the true physical immenseness that is the lumbering giant of Dimmy G, you'll find that his ability to tease others is massively reduced. I found one of the most frightening things about going to my first tabletop, and it was a slight worry I had in the back of my head. And I know, Nick, you've recently launched upon that world too. Was the worry that I might walk in a room and find a bunch of antisocial nerds, but also find I'd found my people. Does that ring bells?
I mean, I've played Games Workshop games when I was younger. I've been to Magic the Gathering tournaments. I even used to play like do the full LARP with Werewolf and Vampire the Masquerade and stuff like that. I've met a lot of these people that are the next level nerds.
Yeah.
I didn't like them then, and I doubt I'll like them now. But
I mean, the reason I asked into that, Zach, is that looking at the three of you, I mean, you're younger gentlemen. You are the next generation of Blood Bowl, if we can keep you and capture your imaginations. And I was wondering, what is it that's driven you to Fumble? I'm about to ask that question. And of course, the other two do have recent tabletop experience, and I've always thought of Fumble as more not a tabletop simulator, but as being as close as it can to the tabletop version of Blood Bowl. Whereas Blood Bowl 2 and 3 are more a computer game version of Blood Bowl. And hence in my head they can sit into, I mean, obviously there's a huge amount of crossover and similarity, but they're trying to do two slightly different things. So I can be really supportive about both without feeling I'm cheating on my lover or whatever. So I'm not seeing that similarity because you're not, which is why you're beautiful here, is to have you as someone that came from the online community and from other games to Blood Bowl 2 and has now found Fumble. Because I suspect that's a slightly different, version of the story and of the travel than the other two. So let's start with that big question. What you doing on Fumble, guys? As I said, Dimmy said he'd never play, electronically again. Gdanik dismissed the graphics as those for children playing with a speak and spell. And Zach, obviously, is not a Blood Bowl player. He's a streamer and gamer. So why are you on Fumble?
um, hmm.
Well, I think maybe an elephant in the room is probably how poorly Blood Bowl 3 has launched.
Sure,
but
sure.
I'm sure you've had plenty of chats about that.
It's been mentioned,
but,
yeah. It cropped up.
But one of the reasons is that I love competition. I love trying to throw myself in and seeing can I do all right. Against some other people who are fancy themselves as doing okay, and I'm really enjoying the competitions on Fumble. As you said, the Black Box Trophy has really captured my and I think a few other people's imaginations and hearts in like, oh, this is something that. Especially with the addition of the Steel Gauntlet, which it has this idea of this Blood Bowl 2 crowd go, oh, this is close to something that I really like doing. And it's a little bit new, it's a little bit different, and there'll be a couple new faces there, but let's throw in and have a bit of a go there. That's something that's exciting me.
Let's see how many times we can face Dio in a season.
Well, yes, I mean, there's another. I mean, I can talk about Dionysian, known as Spence on Fumble, and known as Maximum Derek on Twitch. A man of many names and many faces. And yet still 29 after all these years. Seabraw's, he's made the move across. Rick Reckless, of course. Misspelled Tree, extremely good quality players and streamers across all of those names. And plenty of others I'm missing out or forgetting in the heat of battle. There is a real movement over. Is it just the Black Box Trophy pulling you over, Zach? Is that what's got you excited? It's, I liked Crunchy Nut Cornflakes. That's Crunchy Nut Squares. They're kind of similar. I'll give that a go.
I mean, it's enjoyable. Like the fact that I always said that I'd try Fumble if I could get it to full screen. It's not quite full screen, but it's as good as it's going to get, and it's better coded by a mile. The game actually does what I want it to do a lot of the time without thinking, is this actually going to screw up because of some random reason? It's got all the races, and I didn't realize until I actually started, but the Black Box Trophy format is fantastic. I love it. Even if it locks you out of certain teams after you play a couple of games and
Yeah, I
your
was going
team
to
gets
say
deleted.
there's a higher risk there, isn't there? Much higher.
I mean, I've ranted about it for the last couple of weeks, but the fact that my Skaven team started with 2 gutter runners and after game 1 had 0 means I don't want to play that team anymore. Strangely enough,
But you
but
can't just roll up another Skaven team and go, well, we'll start from game 1 and see what happens this time.
Yeah.
Exactly. And I, to an extent, I like that. It's frustrating because I want to play Skaven, but at the same time, it doesn't let people just go, oh look, my Chaos Dwarf team didn't get the SPP up where I wanted it. Let me restart, like a lot of people will do on Blood Bowl 2, like in CCL.
Well, I mean, a lot of praise there for, the names behind this that we're not talking about so far. Candlejack is, of course, the gentleman, the world's most cuddliest German. I don't know if you saw he was on One World, One Blood Bowl. A friend of mine, lovely, lovely man, fantastic Blood Bowl coach. And he's doing the work on the client that's allowed it now to be resizable. There's 3 different formats now. You can have a vertical pitch, a horizontal pitch, and then a vertical one with a sort of square base rather than a horizontal, a more lozenge-shaped one for where everything else is around it.
1 sec, I'm just going to change my light.
Also, Eliod has done some work it's on GitHub, isn't it? But there's a OBS scene that he's done that makes it sort of much more streamable. I haven't messed with that yet. Plenty of people are streaming without it, but he's getting involved too. And of course, Krista's dropped the Black Box Trophy into an interesting place. Now, Dimmy, you've been enjoying the Black Box Trophy too. I noticed you've done a full run and deep into your second. The first Black Box Trophy ever. A person appeared out of nowhere, and after about 3 games on Fumble, wrote a forum post, said, this is all nonsense, how you should be playing is like this. And he put forward the idea of playing across a year, 200 games, on 5 teams with 40 games a team, and no restarts. And everyone went, that's insane. But that sort of thing becomes a little bit of an earworm, doesn't it? It lodged in people's brains. And eventually a few people just sort of informally started saying, well, I'm doing it, and started trying it. And I was about the 5th or 6th person to say that. And then Krista went, okay, well, if the people are going to do this, I'll build you a mechanism for it. And so season 1 was across an entire year and for 200 games with 40 games per team. So it was really long form for the teams. A bad start could be really overcome by that distance of, there's still 38 games to go. I can pull out of this nosedive. Season 2 was 150 games, season 3 100 games. Season 4 100 games, but suddenly you could have a second team. So if you finished the 100, you could start a second team. And then from sort of season 5 onwards, you could do it consecutively or concurrently sometimes. There was a couple of seasons that were only a month or so long and only had 30 games in them. And it was 2 teams with 15 games each. And then post that, we've settled on this format. This is the 3rd season now, where the format of Black Box Trophy is you nominate 5 teams, costing a total of 7 points, with the points varied as to which teams cost how many points, from 3 down to 0. Some are free. And you have to play 15 games on each of those teams for a total of 60 games over about 3 or 4 months. And this is the 3rd iteration of that. So almost by sort of random accident and Krista fiddling with it each season, it's dropped into its current format. And that seems to be the format that's attracted you guys in. And then for the very, very first time this season, as well as all of the innovations around the client and all the things changing there, and there's plenty of other things there that we haven't talked about, we've got, as Nick slated, we've got this, the steel gauntlet is then going to lead to a competition at the end of it, where the best of each race, very similar to the sort of CCL BB2 format, is going to go into a knockout competition, with a few wild cards thrown in to make it an even number, and they're going to compete for a grand tournament champion. So we'll still have the highest of the league. Someone will still win that, but then there'll also be the knockout champion at the end of it.
Okay, but how many
What do you think of all of
places is
that?
Spence
Of the
going to have?
format, of the history of it, of where it is now, of how it should move forward? There's a huge information dump because I want to get that out there to people too. Still plenty of time to even start. Loads and loads of time to get your run done in the month that's left on this one. I think it's something like 60 days left. It's well over half the time left. How are you feeling about all of it? How are you feeling about the format, where it is, where it's come from, and does it need to change? Are you enjoying it? And is it challenging? Let's just start there and see where we go.
Well, like, so how I kind of fell into it was all the cool kids were doing it, right? So what happened was they brought in like like there's a certain irony to this as well. They brought in the portrait. My biggest qualm with Fumble was I couldn't play portrait, right? They brought in portrait.
Yep.
And then all the cool kids started doing it. You got your Elliot, your Rick, your Nick.
Well,
Like,
Elliot and Rick were here for last season, weren't they? Both of them.
yeah. Well, yeah.
And Elliot
Elliot
won it, and Rick had a reasonable showing.
Elliot's been for like a year, hasn't he? Been playing.
Yeah,
Fumble?
Elliot. Wasn't
he's
invited
been
tonight
around a
because
while.
he's won a Fumble Major. He's topped equal with Malmere, but him and Malmere topped the Black Box Trophy standings. He's been a Fumble head for over a year now, and Rick's been here off and on for a while and competed fully in the last trophy as well. I want to talk a little bit about some learnings from that in a minute, but you guys are new this season, so you're very much a follower of fashion, Dimmy.
Right. So there's that. So like, basically, BB2, I didn't want to play that anymore. I kind of felt that everyone's kind of moved away to BB3. I played a fair bit of BB3, was like not really too fussed about it. Been going to tabletops. I really want to get good at tabletop, basically. So all of these mixing factors, plus the portrait thing. The funny quick irony about that is because I stream it and stuff, Elliot's given me the overlay. Because of the overlay though, it kind of goes landscape, so I can fit it on the screen so people can see it and watch it better. So that's fine, but then it also has a thing where you have to change your display settings on your PC to 100% instead of 150. They're like automatically. So I'm actually playing Fumble on like a box this big in landscape, which is not the reason why I came here in the first place.
Yeah.
But yeah, anyway, so that's like a little bit of a mix. Yeah, once I started playing Black Box, like honestly, it ticks all the boxes for me. So I used to hate the mad mixed TVs, like spinning 350 down, spinning like 300 up. Like I hated it. Like the TV matchmaking is amazing. Like being forced into diversity is scary and probably off-putting at first, but like it's quite cool. Like because when you start doing well on a race that you don't think you should do well on, like it's really fun and stuff. Like it's like you almost like learn to like teams that you wouldn't normally play because you
Right.
kind of are forced into playing them and stuff. Like, and I feel like I'm learning a lot more about the game just through being forced into playing stuff that I wouldn't normally play. Like, I would have just spammed 20 undead teams by now. Do you know what I mean? The amount of games that I've played, I would have just built and remade undead and just spammed them over and over again. And I've played 15 games of undead, and the rest are all over the place. So. Amazing competition. All the coaches are there, like like all the streamers are there. Like the guys on Fumble are pretty good as well. Like in comparison to like your average CCL game versus Fumble game, like I'm playing way better people and having much better games, and all of that is like I hate it when like you play a game that you steamroll in the sense that I don't feel like I'm learning anything from it. Learning bug basically. I've got the learning bug, and like I'm getting that dopamine hit from it, which is just absolutely making. I'm turning into a bit of a beast. I want to play Fumble now, if I'm honest.
Well, I mean, second only behind
Completely
Dionysian. I think
up there.
you've been smashing the games out, haven't you? But in third place, we probably would give that maybe to Gdanik. I don't know. You've been hitting it pretty hard. You've been nodding a lot through what Dimmy says. A lot of that ringing bells.
Yeah. The higher quality of games is definitely a big plus. Like it's not fun when you're playing against someone who like I've played 2 games of Blood Bowl 3 recently, and I was playing some old world alliance, like not the strongest team in the world, and I spun into 2 lizardman teams, and like lizards, they're should be pretty reasonable against old world alliance. I mean, it just so happened that I probably got two people who are very new to the game, and I didn't really enjoy myself because I'm like, yes, I won easily, and I got lots of Kaz because I got too many blocks, and I got some touchdowns, yay! But like when it's like a hard grind for a win, that and you feel like you've really
Yeah,
earned it,
that
like that's
yes,
exciting.
yeah.
Interesting.
Yeah,
So
like
you'd rather serve in heaven than rule in hell.
essentially, yeah. It's when there's this challenge to overcome. Um, I mean, sometimes you want to turn your brain off and just not
Yeah.
do so much and all that. But I feel like when I'm wanting to play some Blood Bowl, I'm wanting that challenge. I'm wanting to try to do battle with the other coach and the dice, of course, as well, and see what the best I can make of it all.
And I mean, it was long
And
held as true
the
that the
level's
average
great.
level on Fumble was probably higher than the average level on Blood Bowl 2. Do we think that's still true? I mean, there's obviously completely new players in all formats, and there's great players in all formats.
Yeah,
But
that's
do we
true.
think the average bar is a little higher because of whatever reason?
No, you've got
It's
people like me
interesting.
dragging down the
Yeah.
average.
It's interesting, right? I've played some coaches who or some particularly brilliant coaches, and I found that an absolute pleasure. Lots of stuff to learn from them and all that. And I've played some on the other end of the spectrum too, who I'm like, wow, like I don't know if like this feels like below the below lower standards on on ladders as well. So
Right.
you get a
Yeah,
full
yeah.
full mix, but I would say the average it
Mm.
seems like a little bit more polar, but I'd say the average bar is a little higher
I
on
mean,
than the
I've
Bubble
always
2,
wondered if maybe that's the
perhaps.
effort you have to go to get playing on Fumble means you're probably a bit more committed.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the number of tabletop people that come in for that reason to practice their tabletop skills start with perhaps a slightly higher basic. I mean, I don't think it's anything to be worried about or bragged about. Just it's interesting if you've found that difference. Um, Zakara, is there anything outside of Black Box Trophy for you? Is that really what's dominating the attention?
Uh, yeah. I mean, I like spin leagues. That's why I like CCL and I like Black Box Trophy because I just get to click the button, find me a game. 50% chances against Dio, but we'll take it as a game. But it's I hate scheduling. That's why I didn't sign up for GLT. I hate scheduling with people.
I mean, we've got a
It
lot of tools on Fumble. There's a little icon you can press that sends the scheduling request without even having to send a message. But it's still you
the,
don't have to turn up at that time to play the game.
that is the problem. I hate because as it is, there'll be some days I'm like, I can't even be bothered to play Black Box Trophy or stream, so I won't even click the button. But if there's a game scheduled for that day,
Yeah.
I've got to play. And I'm like, I can't be bothered with this. That's why I don't play. That's why I stopped playing in leagues like 2 years ago. Because I was like, I don't enjoy the whole having to play regardless of what mood I'm in.
When I first came over to Blood Bowl 2, just visiting, and then Good Day Next Money tempted me in as has been genuinely accused to me in the past. But so, Blitzbit got me back involved. I did it for a couple of months, got bored, wandered off. I actually qualified for the Chalice twice, once as Goblins, once as Dwarves, then disappeared for a year or so. And then came back after the Blitzbit invitation. I thought, let's give this another go. Two questions I kept asking is, so I can restart as many times as I like? And what do you mean? I can play endlessly. So I can play 20 games or 40 or 100 games. That's not a problem.
Yeah.
Those are things you're all three of you, very used to from Black Box 2, isn't it? The restarts and the no ceiling, the play until you're happy. Black Box Trophy has robbed you of both of those. Is it really that similar?
Um, I mean, it's similar in concept enough that you just get to click a button and play, but it's the fact that I think everyone just enjoys the fact that it's a new form. It's like a new spin on the old format. It's a very similar format, but it's just got a couple of little tweaks here and there. And as Dimmy said, he just keeps spinning like 40 undead teams. By now, he would
Yeah.
have just been sat there just spamming undead. This is taking him out of his comfort zone going, right, well, my undead team, I played my games, but now I've got to play Khorne. What am I going to do? Or like
Yes, indeed.
saying, actually, speaking of Dimmy, he was saying, I'm not looking forward to playing Nurgle. And then his Nurgle started off with the best run he had out of all of his
They're
teams.
probably the most fun I've had in box so far. Was the
Exactly. And
Yeah.
let's be honest, Nurgle are garbage in 2020. And yet
Yeah.
you started off, you hit the ground running and
then fell off a cliff. Yeah.
So very much a make weight in your squad, but it all
Yeah.
came good, did it?
but you wouldn't have
Yeah.
ever played them if you'd given the choice. If you were given the choice to just avoid them altogether, you'd never pick up Nurgle out of all the teams.
Yeah, probably. I don't know. Like Nurgle, I like strong teams anyway. Like so, the ones I've got to get round to are the elves, which I'm like, meh, can I be bothered? But
Yeah, elves in 2020. It'd be interesting to get Nick's opinion on that. I think he's been doing some elfing in the box, well known as an elfer. So Black Box Trophy. There's another way to play competitive Blood Bowl on Fumble. Any of you been tempted by the competitive click and game find? That must be very odd as a concept to you guys. The idea of seeing a team and its coach and all of its skills and then deciding if you want to play it. Does it tempt you?
Not so
Nick?
much me, because I don't know. It feels
I'm not up for playing the Snotling team with movement 8, whatever
feels a
other
little
bullshit there
Oh
is.
my
in
God.
some way. Like there's. I don't know, because I had this obviously very, like I'm very a competitive mindset with Blood Bowl, and if I was
Yeah.
to pick a
Same.
game, it's like it's almost like I'm saying. Well, I don't know, because
We
obviously
use the
there's this
term
drive to
select a game, Nick, not pick.
select a game to send.
Choose.
Choose. I'm like, oh, I'll send a game to you, and then are people only ever going to accept a game if they fancy themselves? They fancy their team versus mine. Is that all that's going to happen? Or I don't know. It feels weird. It
I mean,
feels weird. I know lots of people love it.
If somebody
but it
offered
feels
you a
weird
game
to
that
me.
you thought looked balanced, wouldn't you say yes?
Yeah, but maybe I'm being fooled. Maybe they know that they're better than me or something. I don't know. Like what? It feels weird. Like I love the spit. I love the click, find a game, and then no one can complain because we both just click find, and maybe it's a favorable matchup for my opponent or for me, but it's okay because the random computer decided it. It feels like a nice, way to find games for me anyway. But
Zach, my viewers are with me, my listeners are not. I can see you laughing under that joyful facial hair. Similarly, selecting a game doesn't appeal to you? You find that odd?
I've seen some of the teams that are running around like looking for games in competitive ladder.
We all ignore those teams. That's not. You don't have to say yes to those ones.
No, but it's like Nick said, it's just a strange. It's just a strange concept to me. Just the whole idea of just going. I'm going to ask you if you want to play a game. Here's my team. Let me face this team
Yeah.
that you'll play. I don't know.
You can
like
go
Nick said,
down.
it's
You
strange.
can click 4 or 5 offers at once and say, "I'll play any of these. You pick which of those you fancy."
To me, it's just. I don't know.
yeah, I don't know. It feels odd.
I can't put it into words.
I don't know if there's. I don't know if I can say there's anything wrong with it either.
Yeah.
Right? But it just feels odd. But maybe it's just.
I mean, it's a
not
culture.
having
It's
this
a cultural
before.
difference. I mean, can you understand how I felt now with my questions about what do you mean I can just restart if game 1 and 2 go badly? I just bin it and restart. Do I? That's fine, is it? Oh, it is.
That was
Oh, okay. Oh, all right. Oh, and I can play 100 games if I want. Wow. So it's a culture clash, isn't it? And that's going to take us somewhere that I wanted to go at some point, so we may as well go there now. Dimmy, how are you feeling about selecting games? I mean, someone at some point took the incredible decision to select you as their life partner. Could you not select a reasonably equal game? Is that not an easier job?
So like I talked about this a little bit on stream earlier actually. So one of my biggest issues with Blood Bowl is playing for no reason, and so I just left the league recently because it almost felt like losing. into a harder division later on. There wasn't any playoff at the end of that division when I finished that next season. Like, there's only playoffs every 3 seasons, so you only really want to try hard in the 3rd season. And I was just like, do you know what? 1, I'm scheduling. I don't really want to be scheduling. 2, I don't really want to win the game because it's better for me not to win the game, which is outrageous.
Yeah.
So that's slightly different from like matchmaking, but I was talking about the fact that like if I went to a pub with any of you 3, right, would I sit there and play a game of Blood Bowl? I don't know, because there's nothing, like, we're not winning anything. Do you know what I mean? Like, I love tabletop and I love the competition and I really, really enjoy it. I might play you in a pub, just me and you, if there's a tenner on it. Do you know what I mean? Like, there has to be something that you're winning, or like, I don't know.
It's got to have stakes, man.
It has to have. There has to be a reason to play, right? If there's no reason to, like, if it is just a competitive game, oh, you won, great. Like, what? Like, you won nothing. Like, you know, it just.
Because I'll email the NAF and tell them, and my NAF rating would go up a little tiny bit, and yours down a little tiny bit.
Well, I know that sounds like ludicrous, because I know that equally I'm not good enough to win Black Box Trophy anyway. So, like, I'm playing these games with, but then I've got Steel Gauntlet, right? I've got Steel Gauntlet to try and qualify for, which I do think I'm good enough to do. So, you know,
you're not good enough to win that either.
Not win it, but qualify. Win it, not win it, but qualify for it. And I did win OCC 5A, right? Come on, guys.
Look, none of us
professional.
None of us here. I mean, I think Nick might be good enough. I don't think I am. I mean, my highest placing in a Black Box Trophy was, I think, the year of 100 in a season, or might be 150, and I came, I think, 3rd or 4th. I think 4th, and I was thrilled with that.
I'd be chuffed with 4th. Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. So, I mean, you know, winning it is. It takes the right person, the right conditions, the right run, 4 good starts. I mean, these are now sprints as well, so you do need those 4 incredibly good starts. So there's going to be a big luck element in there. But that said, if you look at the top of the season standings for every season, but certainly for this season and the last couple when it's been in this solid format, it's the same names up at the top, isn't it?
Well, this is my first season, but yeah,
I went through and looked through the history of all the things, and you can constantly see some of the same names performing exceptionally well over the years. Also, you mentioned before about, you know, would there be any requests to change the format?
Yeah.
And I had this request which has been passed on to me by one Spence. That a Steel Gauntlet format change, that one can bring all the teams they qualify with. Yeah, exactly right. And not just pick one. Like, they could just, if they qualified, you know, 23 of the 28 teams, that, you know, perhaps they could take them all.
For those listening,
self-serving in any way.
Yeah,
like he really wanted me to pass that on.
Those listening not in on the joke. Spence, the artist formerly known as Dio, and also known as Maximum Derek, is currently both top and second in the Black Box Trophy, and has several other racial leads with his other squads. I think he's playing every single race, isn't he? I think he's doing the.
He's not playing high elves anymore.
There's 28 available races, which you can actually get into 7 squads of 4, can't you? I think it is possible.
You can do it.
Yeah.
He's also threatened that whenever he's done with whatever competitive runs he's planning to do, he's then just going to run dwarves at 1100, 1200 and 1300 in every spin for the remainder of this season to try and destroy everyone else's runs.
I mean, he's only 3 of the top 10.
Which might have been joking. So that format, does the add of some random tournament that the odds are, as Dimmy says, you know, he'll compete hard, he'll like his score, he'll look at those around him, and he'll try maybe another season and try and beat that score. But if you don't make it to this chalice, does this end of the Black Box Trophy thing, does having it really matter? Is that aspiration that important, rather than just let's see what score I can get?
I mean, it's something to strive for, isn't it?
Yeah. For me, it's like, it's like when I played Blood Bowl 2, the whole goal was to qualify for Chalice, right? And then when I qualified for Chalice, I hit this weird like high and then low where I was like, right, what do I do now? Like, because I'm never going to win Chalice, you know. So I had to like search for the next goal, you know. So I think
never say never. Some truly awful coaches have won Chalice.
Oh yeah. I mean, yeah, I wouldn't say. Oh, cheers.
No,
cheers
not awful, but not fabulous. I mean, not.
I mean, like that's it. It's Blood Bowl at the end of the day.
Yeah,
I mean,
someone sometimes is a decent coach and gets a great run. That can do it.
but I think qualifying for something like that and then winning it, I think there's a massive gulf between, right? So baby steps, right? Just pick your goals and build up to something big. Like at the end of the day, my goal is to win NAF champs. Like, you know, how do I get there? I do this competition, this competition, this competition. Or like, do you know what I mean? I just like, and like to be fair, like Black Box Trophy is giving me like, it's forcing me into diversity, it's forcing me into other races, which gives you a better understanding of the game. Like someone asked me the other day in a game, he's like, "Oh, how do you deal with elves as a bash team?" And I was like, "You play elves against bash teams, and then you learn that this is horrible. This is a horrible situation that I'm in. I don't want to be in this situation." So when you play the bash team against the elves, you try and imitate that horrible situation that you're in. Like that was like I think Dio gave me that advice years ago. Like he was like, I'm sorry to break it to you, Dim, but you're gonna have to play elves. Like no matter how much you hate it, like if you want to get better, like that's outside of one turning. I think that's the best thing that you can do is play out of your comfort zone. Like
I mean,
and
empathy can take you so far.
yeah,
If you've faced undead 1,000 times, you've got a pretty good
yeah,
idea of what they're doing. But it can
yeah,
only take you so far. And actually, the true experience is still better.
yeah.
So, do try and walk that mile in another man's shoes. And the great thing about that is, of course, you're then a mile away, and you've got his shoes. So what's he going to do about it? It's always one of my favourite expressions. The Black Box Trophy is obviously delighting us and taking us to these extents. But the Fumble client, as Nick was saying, he gimps it and turns it into a sort of, I think of it as a very communist way of showing it. It's all very grey, all very utilitarian. Nothing's exciting and zany. But the graphics of Fumble have long been a contentious issue amongst those of you used to your 3D models. How are you coping? Me, I've got to be honest, I love those little icons, those pixels. I know that on any field, even if two teams are facing each other, because they're in different colours, even if they're undead with loads of zombies, every zombie's actually unique. You can tell a zombie from a skeleton to me, you can tell them from a mummy, but each of the zombies is actually a tiny bit, a pixel or two different from all of the others. And I love that about the Fumble client. I find them really easy to identify it from a distance. And yet some people are still using the circles with the strange letters in them. So how have you adjusted to all of that and to the client and to the settings and all of that? What has that meant to you guys?
I enjoyed seeing the contempt in your eyes when you mentioned the circles, but no, like I mentioned this. Oh wait, no, it wasn't live when I mentioned this. So there are times when there's like two human teams, but or not humans exactly, but two human-based teams like Amazons or Norse, where the pixels don't always make me go, "Oh, that's this model," and that's only because I'm not used to it.
Yeah,
Whereas,
Norse
Good-
splits are Norse lines.
yeah,
Yeah,
whereas Gdanix, like the buttons, because it's got a Z on it. It's got a Z on it or a B on it, and you know straight away what that is.
I mean, I've had to ask myself some tough questions because after 10,000 games of Blood Bowl, and I can do that thing, from the Queen's Gambit where I play Blood Bowl on the ceiling. I can sort of do that even. I can play it sideways, lengthways. If I turn up at a tournament, it doesn't matter which way it is. But when Gdanix streams with letters in circles, it completely triggers me, and I can't work out what the hell's going on. And I wonder if it's because I'm only just, but I'm ever so slightly dyslexic. I'm literally just over the line. And I wonder if it's that. But I genuinely struggle. It's the fact that some of the circles are a bit bigger is what I have to go to first. And from there I can start to work things out. But I'm genuinely working things out. So when I watch your lovely stream, Nick, which I like to do, I open the Fumble client and have it over your stream. So I'm seeing the chat down the side, but I'm seeing the actual client. So I can work out what's going on. But it's great that we have those options for you. That level of customizability, is that something that you've enjoyed?
Extremely appealing. The fact that I can customize like so much of the experience. Now, I'm sure you'll get some great joy out of this purple chest. Is that I was attempting a one turn with my underworld, and I was counting out squares, and for some reason I was like, oh, I thought if I did, when I was like, oh, okay, I'll do my pass to my gutter runner so I can do the one turn.
Right.
And then I count out the squares. I'm like, okay, if I do 2 rushes, then it'll be a shorter pass than if not. I go pick up the ball, move over to do the pass, and I'm about to do the rushes. And I start counting again. I'm like, oh, I must have miscounted. This C, my catcher, who I'm trying to pass to, which is a clan rat,
Right.
is too far away. And so, it's not some sort of infallible process or anything. But because on all the other teams, when there's a C, it's a catcher. And of course, when you're one turning, you pass to your catcher generally.
See, I so don't get
off.
the little circles and letters that I didn't get the joke until you explained it.
Yes.
But it's kind of great that it is this versatile. I mean, lots of people. Dimmy, do you play with the Fumble has now got racial pictures as well? They don't have the racial effects, but they have the visuals of all the different races. Do you have those turned on? Does anyone?
See, this is where right. So I'm going to tell you the things that I absolutely love and are probably better than BB3 and BB2 is auto marking players. That used to drive me crazy when that was not in. And now that's in, it's so good. The green ticks are
okay. So just to explain as we go through for anyone that tried Fumble a while ago and doesn't know what these changes are, auto marking. For a while, you've been able to shift right click and then mark any player, any piece of the territory as well with anything you want, up to about 6 or 7 characters, depending how much can fit in the space. So we've been in the habit of marking our teams, which then persists when you reload that team, the markings are still there, but also opponents' teams. And we've each got our own shorthand as to how we mark skills. Recently, Candlejack's amended it so that you can set some of those pre-game, and it will then automatically mark your opponent's players with that, which whatever your choice of letters and symbols for skills is. Which people are, I think, finding really useful and really fun, and it's massively shortened that process of getting everything on the pitch marked up the way you want it. And then the green ticks. Now, it always used to be, and particularly if you use the icons, you'll notice that once a player has moved, they're greyed out. It's a beautiful, subtle thing. It just shows, that little player, a little bit greyer, you've used that one, mate. Go and use another one. Now, there's obscuring about a third of the icon. There's a great big green tick that shows you it's used.
Look, some of us have got short attention spans, and we need the green ticks to let us know.
Honestly, when I started playing, I was streaming it, and someone said, "Can you turn the green ticks on for their benefit?" And then I turned it on, and then realised that I preferred it. Do you know what I mean? So like, I didn't even really know it was a thing, and it's weird because I was watching like Elliot's stream, and he has it on, and it never registered in my brain that it was on. So when I was playing Fumble, I was playing without it. And it genuinely, I think it's one of those things that someone suggested to me that I didn't even realise that I knew I liked or needed until someone requested it, and then I was like, oh, well, holy moly, like that's pretty handy actually. So there's that. Pitches, I always play on the standard. I prefer the standard grass pitch rather than the other pitches because I like some like what's the word? You know where you get the same thing over and over again? Continue.
Repetition?
Marriage?
I don't know.
Oh, continuity.
Yeah, continuity. That's it. So it's like because like I want less variables when I want less variables when I play Blood Bowl. Like I don't mind the weather and stuff. Like I like the reason I don't like the other pitch because you don't see the weather. I know you get the icon and stuff, but like I feel like there's certain things that I need to be visually prompted on, and there's other things that I don't. You know. And then I was only sort of like saying that I prefer seeing the characters and that, but that's the way my brain works. Like I can't read something and understand it and do it. Do you know what I mean? I have to do it myself to do it. And I think having the characters rather than the shields and that is probably just the way my brain interprets the game. You know, so. And the thing is as well, one thing that I realised with Fumble is I didn't really like watching Fumble on a stream until I played Fumble, because once I've played Fumble, I can understand it on a stream like so much better. Like, so it's really weird. Like I've gone full cycle. Like, I've just completely converted now. And now like people have been streaming Blood Bowl 3 and stuff, and I haven't really been like, if there's a Fumble stream on, I'm watching that, and then if not, I'll be watching BB3 and stuff. So pretty mad.
Now you've mentioned something interesting. We've managed to get 50 minutes into this podcast with 3 notable streamers from the Blood Bowl 2 community, and Zakara. And yet we've yet to mention. I'm sorry, man. It was too easy.
So
Wow.
I'll just mute myself and
Too
play my
easy.
base. All good.
I just saw you down there and I went for it. In the screen, there's 4 of us in the corner, and small. And none of us have yet actually mentioned the viewers. So, did any of you think of your poor viewers? Did the viewers drive you to Fumble? Did they resist you coming? Did they go, what is this? Don't show us this. Do you care?
Did
Do
we
you?
get viewers on Fumble?
Well, do you? And are they down? Is it? How do we feel about viewers? Do we care? Are they involved in this? Are they relevant?
I have a subsection of viewers who very much enjoy the Fumble streams. Maybe there's 1 or 2 viewers who have been tricked into liking me as a person and want to watch that, but would watch me play do anything. But there's it's definitely a subsection. It's not like I literally, I played my GLT game the other on Saturday. 15 to 20 viewers.
Wasn't that at
Which
like
is not
4 a.m. though, or something ridiculous?
Yeah, but I stream
Yeah.
at those times, right?
Yeah,
So I
okay.
have
Yeah,
some
yeah.
sort of audience over those times, right? So, but yeah, and it's the start of the stream as well, which is obviously a bit of a build up. You obviously if you stream for 7 hours, you peak is somewhere near the end or closer to the end, right?
Yeah.
And then I swap over to Blood Bowl 3 just to try it out because there's this new season patch, and boom, it goes up, right? Double, triple, whatever, right? And so obviously there is a viewership drop off on Fumble, that's for sure.
Yeah.
That would be watching, that want to watch Blood Bowl,
but really want to watch it in 3D. They're used to that service.
Yeah. We were discussing this, I think, on Friday on Nick's channel. And Nick was streaming, and someone said about Blood Bowl 3 coming out. Might have actually been earlier in the week. I don't know. Children make time a weird thing. But we were discussing it, and both Nick and I were saying we had 100, anywhere between 70 and 100 viewers when we were streaming Blood Bowl 3. And yet we've got like 15, 30 kind of is where you top out, really, when it comes down to Fumble. But it's a more enjoyable experience. It's a more enjoyable experience streaming Fumble than it is Blood Bowl 3, when Blood Bowl 3 makes you work to try and enjoy it.
So that's one of the things I found really interesting is Blood Bowl 3 has been there the whole time. I know that Season 1 has just launched, and there's been a lot of bug fixes. And actually, I'll be honest, I wish it well, as we said earlier, and someone has told me off in the chat for shilling for Blood Bowl 3. I have a complex relationship with it, of course. I'm an admin on Fumble. I love Fumble. This entire podcast is bigging up Fumble, which I think is in a great place right now. But I think Fumble will still be in a great place, whether Blood Bowl 3 is great or Blood Bowl 3 is terrible. Blood Bowl 3 being great will mean that Fumble loses some people to Blood Bowl 3. Of course it will. And it being terrible will mean we'll gain some instead. But they are slightly differing things, and I think there's plenty of room in the world for both. There certainly was with Blood Bowl 2 and Fumble. Fumble hasn't then attracted you because it's the drive in viewers. And I get that some streamers have stayed with where the viewers have taken them to go. They want those big numbers. They're trying to earn a living off it. Bless them. So for the 3 of you, it genuinely is the competitive atmosphere, the fun of being on Fumble that's brought you here. And I think that's really cool. But it has been, we mentioned this earlier, and I do want to spend a bit of time on it. It has been a culture clash, hasn't it? I mean, I talked about my amazing realization that I could restart a team if game 1 was terrible. And that also impacted on how I built things. When Rick came over and tried the season before this one, as he was starting, I did say to him, it's not I try not to backseat, but I did say to Rick, you do know this isn't CCL. You might have to think about, are your builds as suitable in this environment as they are for CCL? Because there's no restarts.
But how many woo flip me guys are we going to hear?
And I advocated for maybe a slight move towards a more reroll heavy builds, and maybe even starting apothecaries, because conservative starts aren't that bad an idea in Black Box Trophy. So let's start there with the builds first. Was I right in what I told Rick? Notably this season he has gone with a few more rerolls. but is still randoming everything because he's not called Rick Careful.
Good
How
old Rick
how have
boy.
you found that move? First of all, in the ethos of the game building, and then I want to talk about the culture of the people and the environment as well. But let's start with the games and the teams. How have you found all of that? It's different. Nick, you're a man known for his win rates, known for dominating those late nights when the Australians play, and I'm sure Southern Waste League will be trying to get their hooks into you. The major way that most Australians play Blood Bowl is through the SWL on Fumble, the oldest, biggest, and best of the leagues available on Fumble. Even better than the Whitehall League, sadly. Um, you also spin in the midnight hours in the known dark times of the box. So how's all that been for you? The adjustment over into this new way of building and thinking.
Um, because of the short format of box, um, it does drive a little more towards TV efficiency. It drives towards the random skills because you have limited SPP and bits and pieces like that. It does drive towards conservative. I think that was reasonable advice you gave to Rick, um, because you've got this one run, and if things if you open up the it was one thing I was talking about. I was talking with Rick the other day, and I was talking about how sometimes I make decisions that cut out the bottom part of my low rolls, like the times where my team gets completely decimated and everything goes terribly wrong.
Mm-hmm.
But in giving that up, I give up this high roll of, oh look, I won 70-0 and I caused 50 Ks, and I give up that, and that to find this middle ground. And I think trying to find this middle ground in Black Box Trophy is quite reasonable.
Right, so bringing that game tactic to the meta of how to do the run.
Yeah, and also like trying to find some value out of random skills, because we can get some. Um, there's a limited amount of SPP floating around in 15 games, but you need to get some skills to beat other teams. It's a tricky balance, and I like that.
Are you saying that you like to randomize the equity?
You randomize the equity, yeah, of course, but also compared to what else I've played in 2020 has been eternal team building, essentially, right? Which feels a little cookie cutter to me. It's like, yes, my elves want blodge and sidestep and maybe a little bit of guard and maybe some stat ups, and yes, my dwarves want guard and step and mighty blow.
So Blood Bowl 3,
my
even
runner
with
probably wants movement 8.
even with the competitive ladder as it's been launched now in season 1, it seems that teams can be that perpetual live forever thing again, or restarted endlessly
Yeah.
again. So whilst there might be a case to start with a few randoms, you're saying that there you can design and build the perfect team over time. But in Black Box Trophy, there's that 15 game. At that point, we stop.
Which is which drives a little more like trying to find that extra little bit of edge in that 15 games, which I find exciting. There can be lots of fun in building, like, oh, I want to build this exact team and such. But I think the rule set of Blood Bowl 2020 does lean itself towards like short form play. Like you can definitely kind of tell it feels a little more designed around like, us and 6 other mates get together and play a 10 round robin, and maybe the top 4 do a little playoff at the end.
Yeah, I've always said it's designed for a club of 6 to 8 people to play, and to keep being able to play season after season with a few new people joining, and that all work. That feels like what these rules are built for.
Yeah, and so, how do you fit that into spin play? It's a tricky thing. I think Black Box Trophy does a great job of it, and creates this interesting decision environment where we're trying to, get the most out of our. What more juice can I squeeze from this stone?
Speaking about squeezing juice, let's turn again to Zach briefly. I wanted to say earlier, you're talking about your win rates and things. You've always had the choice and not taken it, haven't you? To just buy a PlayStation, buy an Xbox, and go and be a big fish. And I'm not kidding with you, mate. I mean, you're a
No.
decent enough player that in a much smaller pond, you could have been, one of the big fish, and you've chosen not to. You've chosen to. I'm going to use the word plod along, and I don't mean it like that, but to challenge yourself and push yourself in the bigger environment. And you've come to Black Box Trophy and done exactly the same. And yet, I think of you as someone who enjoys coaching some of the tougher teams. The nobility or the Bretonians as was, things like that. Is that still the case? Are you?
I get bored with the tier one teams. I don't know. I guess it's because I know that they're good, and then you play them for a minute, and then you're like, oh, well, damn, this is really good. What do you mean I could start with 2 strength 5 without loner, and they get mighty blow? What is this? I'm used to Kislev, who have 0 skills to start out with, and I don't know. It's kind of, I suppose, a little bit like when Daedalquist was banging out 400 games of goblins a season, like an absolute madman. I I think I enjoy the challenge side of it, but also then, as Nick and Hancock pointed out a couple of weeks ago, uh, it's also the Zach kind of teams are the Norse, the
Yeah.
Kislev, the teams that allow themselves to be diced. So that way that I've got an excuse for when I make a mistake.
Well, I mean, okay. Hey, look, there's an insight. Do you think that's the case? That you're picking teams, and I've always said this about halfling coaches, toxically evil people that they are. That unlike goblin coaches, who are all fun, nice guys, fling coaches pick flings so that when they lose, they've got an excuse, and if they win, they can crow about it. Do you think there's a bit of that? Are you hiding yourself under the teams that you can go, look, I'm Norse, of course I got steamrolled?
No, I pick low tier or mid low tier in every kind of game that I play. Fighting games, Blood Bowl. It doesn't matter. I enjoy the stuff that kind of is either a little bit harder to play or just generally isn't quite as good, so requires that little bit more effort. I'm not great at Blood Bowl by any stretch of the imagination, but when you so that's a few seasons ago on Blood Bowl 2, I actually named a team when Dimmy had his whole "I'm done with Blood Bowl." I actually named an undead team called Dimmy Come Back.
Oh.
And I think my first 4 games, I just steamrolled people, and it wasn't because necessarily. I mean, I was playing well, but it was just because the team felt like I could just autopilot. I could just go click this, okay, and that just doesn't appeal to me as much as okay. If I do a 3+3+4+3+, I might have a 1D on the ball. That that's a lot more fun to me.
Cool. And I hate this definition, but someone did it in a gaming article, and I've been struggling with it my entire life because under this definition, I'm something they call a scrub. Do you accept that you're a scrub because you choose these suboptimal teams?
Uh,
I mean, it was to
see,
me over the fact that I at the time never played woodies or lizards. I just didn't want to.
see, I come from a different kind of fighting games. A scrub is someone who refuses to learn.
Oh,
So
okay, right.
to that extent, I would agree because I make the same mistakes that I made 2.5 years ago when I first started
I mean,
playing
I
Blood
just
Bowl
I
2.
just heard it as a pejorative for someone that
Yeah.
doesn't min max and rinse for the absolute high value and everything. And I sort of thought that's a horrible term, but I think that's me, and I think it's quite a lot of people.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think a lot of people, everyone enjoys being the big tier one team, right? Everyone does enjoy that feeling of power of, well, I do just get to kind of not turn your brain off exactly, but you don't need to think as hard on your turns
Hmm.
compared to a team that goes, okay, so I need to actually sit here, and if I don't think this turn through 100%, my team isn't going to kind of just go, it's all right, mate, don't worry about that little mistake, I'll back you up. Like you playing goblins is a
Yeah,
very, very, it's a very, if you make a mistake with goblins, you're going to get punished for it.
and often even if you don't.
Yeah. But I mean, if you make a mistake with, let's look at the tier one team, so orcs or undead. A lot of the time, they're just going to cover the mistake because they're just so good at what they do anyway.
Do you think it's slightly at times? Is it a morality thing, choosing to play the tougher challenges? Are we into an area of gaming morality, which I know Nick loves, the idea of gaming morality, that we have it?
some of us are just masochists. I think that's what it comes down to an
Okay,
extent.
yeah.
There's a level of masochism to I want to play these bad teams.
Now I've seen
knowing that
I've
they're
seen
not
you get
good.
very cross when those bad teams lose. Are the highs as commensurately high? Do you get as happy when you win?
I mean,
Do you leap off your chair and do a little dance and then climb back on?
He can't help himself, can he? Oh my goodness.
so the worst thing is I was about to answer and then my brain went, wait, what was that?
I'm sorry.
It's okay.
I'll cut it short.
But no, I genuinely, I do get really happy when I do win
Yeah.
with these. Like when you do the fun play with Kislev that does result in something good happening, and then you beat someone, especially when you beat someone good. Like one of my favorite moments was beating Andre with Kislev, because I was just like, well, I'm already outmatched in this matchup, and you're playing Chaos Dwarves. It was either Chaos Dwarves or I don't remember, but I did a bunch of stuff. It worked out. And at the end of the game, I was sat there just like, well, I don't know about you boys, but I'm spent. I'm just, oh, it was a good feeling.
Is there a freedom in knowing that you, in your head, I mean, I actually think you're a better coach than you give yourself credit for at times, Zach. And you've put yourself in some examples, like I said, with tough teams, in tough environments, where proving that to yourself is going to be quite tough to do, which I think is an interesting psychological choice, but I don't have time or the interest to go into that. But I do think, does it put you in a situation, from a Blood Bowl perspective, where you can start the game going, do you know what, all bets are open here because I'm in a tough spot from roll one, so I'm going to try some stuff and have some fun with it and see what happens. Is that the advantage of that?
Yeah, because you're not kind of, I don't want to say you're like kind of boxed in with some of the better teams, but they don't. Again, going back to the Rick quote of randomizing the equity. Sometimes you do just pick up the dice, drop them on the table, and only some teams can do that. And generally, that's the teams that I kind of, they're not great teams, but they have that high roll potential to just go, well, I just rolled a bunch of good dice, and now I get to do what I want. Whereas the better teams don't kind of have that; they're more solid and just.
Nick, are these joys you will never know as someone both good at Blood Bowl and that likes Tier 1 teams?
Oh, I was about to say that I've really been enjoying playing Underworld this season. I don't know, something about
Well,
them,
there was a famous quote from someone, I won't name them, but one streamer did once say, having tried Blood Bowl 3 and some of the new 2020 rules, that they used to really enjoy playing Wood Elves under Blood Bowl 2, but now they were finding, with the change of rules, they were really enjoying Underworld, and they just couldn't think why.
Yeah. Oh, you're funny about that.
Funny
yeah,
as
yeah,
odd, isn't it?
Yeah. It's interesting. Like
Has that got a point? You're so all about the win rate, you don't have the fun he does.
I do relate to what Zach's saying in that there is this. I think there is an extra special feeling of like, oh, I've got this. I've started in a poor position, and oh look, I was the underdog in this match, and oh look, with this creative decision making process I've had, I was able to get an advantage, and go me. That's probably the best feeling in Blood Bowl is winning as the underdog. Yeah, I mean, probably, yeah. No, I think my victories that are going to stick in my mind are those ones where, a courageous win when you're hundreds of TV down, or you're playing halflings or Kislev, or or whatever it may.
Indeed, one of the games that's always stuck with me was a draw. But a draw from just, I should never have had anything. No business drawing that game at all. And it will stick with the coach Malmir till his dying day as well. I did some things with a troll that, there's video nasties of what I did with that troll. And it stopped him getting a racial lead and possibly stopped him winning the entire Black Box trophy that season. And I celebrated anyway, despite him being my friend. So sometimes, yeah, the games you remember can be odd ones. We've moved on slightly because I do want to come back to it because there's somewhere I want to go afterwards. Dimmy, the changes in coming over to Black Box Trophy, building and playing, how's that been for you? We didn't touch on you with that. Are
I
you being more
actually,
conservative? Are you finding that pressure to take the randoms because of the death march till 15 games? How's it been?
uh, I like this is kind of more to do with the rules than Fumble itself, but I
Yep.
really like the changes in the fact that you don't get everything with a lot of the teams. Like, I like the fact that it feels like I don't know whether so much it's a choice now, whereas because the problem with Blood Bowl 2 and CCL and the old rule set is I played so much of it, like the team builds didn't feel like a choice. So maybe if I played that amount of the new rule set, it'd be the same feeling, like they're not much of a choice. But with the change to the costings, I mean, there's certain costings on certain teams that infuriate me, and I'm like, why? Like the cost of rerolls, the cost of their positionals, and that sort of thing. But yeah, I generally think that's a good thing that teams
Quick
don't
straw
get.
poll in passing. Don't lose your train of thought, Dimmy.
Yeah,
Hands up, anyone that has enjoyed the 5K coming back into prices.
I don't. Yeah,
Yeah, what? I mean, why? Why do we have to bring 5K back? Anyway, yes,
So
Tim.
I could
oh
be
God.
5k short of the inducement I
Yeah,
want.
Yeah,
that
exactly.
That's
reason.
why.
That
Exactly, yeah.
reason.
So yeah, like team building wise, I've probably gone against your advice. I've probably dropped rerolls for positionals, but then
Okay.
the reason I'm doing that is because it's a sprint, right? It's a 15 game, so the more positionals you have, the more likely you're going to hit MVPs, the more likely you're going to get the skills you want. Like if you play more conservatively, like the thing is
I
it
mean, I'm
depends
not.
on
I'm
what
not
race.
saying it's simply by more rerolls. I'm saying there is
Yeah,
a
yeah,
different build when you
like
know that if you get smushed in game 2, you can't restart, than if
yeah,
you know
yeah,
you
yeah.
can. And if you know
Like
that it's 15 games and dead, than if you know it's I might need to do this for 50 games. There's
yeah.
different tensions deciding what you build with. That's all.
I mean, for an example, I started with one reroll Necro so I could get
Oof,
two
yeah,
wolves
yeah.
and a ghoul. It worked. It
Well,
worked.
I
I
mean,
got lucky in the first couple of games.
right.
Like, it did work. Like,
And,
And if
and
you
you're
high rolled
accepting
your
going
tits
in.
off,
I'm high rolling this, and I'm going to need the first couple of games to go well.
yeah, 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 yeah. But like, and Nurgle started two rerolls, three pestigores, four bloaters, and like rotters, no beast. Like, because I want the positionals. I want the positionals getting MVPs early as possible. Like the
Arguably,
thing
the
is,
beast, if you ever afford him, is just as good without anything as
yeah,
he's going to
yeah.
get to in 15 games. To be honest.
Like I think higher rerolls weirdly is probably for elves because like
Hmm.
you want to like one turn in teams and things like that. Like things or Dakar like or withdrawn offense.
Importantly, with
Sorry.
elves, you're probably trying to learn how to win with 3 or 4 loners on the team.
Yeah, 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 yeah,
So
seven.
if you've bought your rerolls early, you've got those stacked in the bank. You know
yeah.
they're there. You try and keep your positionals alive, and you try and get to 11, but you accept you might be cycling loners through. So you need the
This is the
rerolls for your
thing.
star elves to do what they're doing.
Yeah,
Nick's
this is the
smiling.
other
Am I
thing.
right, Nick? Is that
Well, so far I've only started one elf team in the Black Box Trophy, and it had a fantastic game one against goblins.
okay? Brilliant.
Where
So a nice easy
I
start.
oh yeah, that's maybe where I went wrong.
Oh right.
I suffered four deaths, dead deads, a couple positionals, and then I had 7 loners for game 2 and
Okay,
a blitzer. So that went well.
that went well.
Um, we've recovered since then a little bit,
I've got a
but
picture. I'm gonna
I
post
do
it.
understand that we're going to have less rusted players due
So
to the new
let's
table.
just touch on this. That can't be an experience you've had before in Blood Bowl 2. You'd have been to that team, surely.
Yeah, 100%.
Yes.
I have, yes, probably. I have lent on the side of continuing teams that maybe other coaches would not. So I have continued on a loss game one before,
Sure.
but probably not a loss and most of the team dying. Probably, like I never would have had this experience before, and we finished with a positive record after the 15 games, which I was very chuffed about. And I got up to 8 rostered players at one point. We didn't get back up to there again, but we're not at there at the moment. But I was very excited when I was like, oh, my 3 loners go on the LOS, and then my team.
That's what I love about this. There's so many threads I want to pull, and I can't pull them all. So, Dimmy, I am going to still park you for a little bit. I do want to talk some more about team building, but let's talk about this thread. The coaching things that should be dead, but we're carrying on. Is there learning there? I've always said to people when I'm coaching them, when you're in a hopeless position, try, see what can be achieved, because there'll be games where that pays off for you in either team building or grabbing a draw, or have you found that this has put you, this pressure, this different way of doing things, has put you in games where you're finding areas of your Blood Bowl that you'd not been finding before? Does that make sense?
Yeah,
No.
I'd say.
Thanks, Tim.
I'd say so. And as to Krista is bringing up in chat a question of, was playing on with a destroyed team, quote unquote.
Yeah, was it fun?
A fun experience, and I'd say it was. Now there was a little bit of frustration, obviously, in trying to. It's like, okay, well, I had another Witch Elf die on like game 4 after I bought it back, and I was like, well, come on, I would like to have some players, and there's this frustration, but eventually being able to like go, yes, I finished with this record. I'm very happy with, like, there's obviously this traumatic experience, and
traumatic but formative.
Formative, yes. And every time I see that opponent spin into someone, when I'm watching a stream, spin into Elliot or Dimmy, I'm like, oh, it's the Goblin Man.
Well, this is why I beat my children. I don't want to, but they'll thank me for it one day. I don't obviously beat my children. I beat other people's. So what we're talking about here with that team, Nick, is you set yourself there a micro goal, because you were very happy to tell us you ended with a positive record on it, and that clearly was a win for you. You set a micro goal. You weren't going to qualify for the Gauntlet Chalice with it. It was no longer going to be a BBT winning team. Dimmy is not, he thinks, going to be top of the rankings. Zach presumably looks at where Dimmy is and thinks, if I can beat that would be a cracking run. We're all setting micro goals. And I think Fumble is much more full of those micro goals than, say, Blood Bowl 2 or 3 is, who want to hand you a goal and say, here's your goal. And indeed, some people have complained about Blood Bowl 3, which has sorted a lot of the bugs out, does seem to be a bit smoother, but there's no point.
Yeah, the goal is to play a ton of games for no real end thing.
But Fumble's sort of, until we had the Black Box Trophy, which has brought that point to it, has always kind of had no point. How are you finding those micro goals and that move from there is just the chalice, how near do I get, to okay, well, if I can hit 60 points this season, that'd be good, or if I can hit 30 points, it'd be good. Zach, have you set your own micro goals? Have you got something in mind that you consider a target you're aiming at, or is it literally trying to qualify?
I mean, you literally called it out. I just want to beat Dimmy's record.
Yeah, I thought you might be. I thought you might look at.
You'll
I genuinely thought. I bet Zach's looked at
it.
Dimmy's score and thought, if I can get up near that would do.
I literally was looking at it like, if I can bang out the full 60 games, I can piss all over that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not the best record. Yeah.
No, but it's just that's. I mean, I haven't got all the time in the world for Blood Bowl. Like,
Sure.
This time last year, or actually about 18 months ago, probably some of you will remember, I was banging out like 6-hour streams 5 or 6 days a week. And although 6 hours isn't a lot for some people, that would be like 5 or 6 games of Blood Bowl for me. And by the end of it, I was like, my brain hurts. I need to go. But now I can fit in 2 or 3 hours some days of the week. And Nick's always said to me, every season when I was close to qualifying with Kislev, he's like, I think one of the last ones, it was, Zach, you're not going to qualify. It's like, oh, well, that hurts. And his answer was, it's not because you can't do it. It's not because you're shit with Kislev either, because you're all right with Kislev. It's because you don't have enough time to put the rest of the games in the short amount of time that is left.
Yeah.
And it was correct. And it actually saved me a week of grinding out Kislev games. Yeah, exactly.
Choosing early to say, discretion's the better part of valor here can be a good use of time, can't it?
I played one game and was just like, if this game goes, this was like the pivot game. It's either go really well or really badly. If it just Lose or draw, I just dump it and move on with my life.
Okay, so we've talked about moving to this new culture of how we play games, how we build teams, the Black Box Trophy. I mean, I would advertise to you lots of the other stuff going on Fumble. Nick, as he said, has dipped his hand into one of the majors, which you can use a Black Box Trophy team for. There's also the Brawls, which you can drop Black Box Trophy teams into. You can start them into Royal Rookie Rumbles, which are for new teams, not necessarily new coaches. I would also advocate, I don't know if the stream would like it, but it sounds like that's not really driving you guys. At some point, you would have to use competitive. They do have like Rookie Rumble type things, but mostly they use competitive. Have a look at the Secret League sometime, where there's over 100 different races. Some people go, oh, they're not balanced. I mean, they're not 100% balanced, but what in Blood Bowl is. But Garian's done a really, really good job with those. And there's icons of them all for those that care. I'm sure there's letters for them, Nick. And there's all sorts. There's all sorts in there, mostly from the Warhammer world, as I understand it. And some really cool stuff as well. So that's always fun. But I did say, as well as talking about the sort of the culture of playing the games, there's the culture of the Blood Bowl 2 community, the streamer, the Twitch community, and there's the Fumble culture. And those have met. So I didn't want to make this all about that, because I genuinely don't want to show full of histrionics and drama. I want to talk about Blood Bowl and my love of it, which I'm genuinely open about the fact I've been struggling a bit the last couple of months to want to play. I'm trying to refine my love for it. I'm watching you guys really sink your teeth into and enjoy Fumble. It's been really good for me and making me want to play it, so thank you for that. But there's also been some moments where the culture has met and not, where you've looked like three disreputable Polish people hanging around on a street corner at 12. And people have called LBC and said, I don't like it. I don't like them round here. So let me be that shocked caller to the London Business Channel, saying, I don't like it. I don't like the way they look at me. How have you found that? I'm talking about both, because Dibby, obviously you're a lovely person that everybody loves. Man of the people. I've never heard a word negative about you from anyone. But, Zach, some people have mentioned that you're perhaps not as chatty in the Fumble client as they might wish. I have to say that happens to me, particularly when I'm streaming. I have to apologise and say I've been so busy mouthing off in chat, I haven't said anything in chat.
Yeah.
I wonder if that's a culture or if you feel that's a streamer thing. Nick, obviously, lover of the timeout button, and maybe let's talk a little bit about that. I don't want to, again, doesn't want it to be a big thing, but it's been there, it's happened. I'd be crazy if I didn't mention it. So, Dimmy, let's start with you. You seem to have adjusted seamlessly. I haven't heard anyone complain about Dimmy G, nor do I ever expect to. You're a man beloved by many. How have you felt adjusting to Fumble, and what's the culture like there for you?
I mean, to be completely fair, I've not really had, the only issues I've had is when I've probably had a few too many beers and I've probably been a bit of a knob. Like, no one's really been a knob to me.
Everyone's shocked by this.
Like the timeout thing's annoying, right? And I'll tell you, the thing about a timeout is every time I haven't timed someone out, I've regretted it instantly, and then I just sit there and think, why didn't I just time them out? And so like now I just time people out. Like, it is my thing. Like, I told someone that I time out on 4 minutes a day, which I don't do and I don't plan to do moving forward, but I just did it because I knew that they made a mention about they like being told about it, basically. But like, yeah, at the end of the day, if you can't like play a competitive game of Blood Bowl in a 4-minute turn, then I'm just like, yeah. I timed Store out in our GLT match actually, and I didn't do it straight away. I gave him 5 seconds. I should have just done it straight away, honestly. But like, it's annoying that it is a decision that I have to make. I think it should just run out in 4 minutes, but I mean, who cares really? Like, culture-wise, you'll never hear someone on Blood Bowl 2 or 3 say, type in chat going, why are you not talking to me in chat? Like, that is never going to happen. Like,
No, it's
honestly,
a different culture. I would describe Fumble
like,
as a little warmer, a little more chatty, a little bit more social.
Yeah. No one is ever going to say to you in Blood Bowl 2 or Blood Bowl 3, why are you not talking to me in chat?
In
like,
Blood Bowl 3, all they're going to say is,
yeah.
So, yeah, I get your point.
I actually quite like that.
I would pay for a Vogue emote on Blood Bowl 3, I would.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's hilarious. It's so bad.
So how have you found that, Dimmy? When people talk to you, and suddenly you've got the screen, and you know it's not out on the screen because you're using Elliot's layover or whatever. And you're
Yeah.
playing your game, and you've got your dice rolls, and there's this little white corner of the screen, and suddenly there's all this writing there of people saying things.
Yeah, I know. I'm consciously trying. I'm actually consciously making an effort to say hello, good luck, have fun. The funny thing is it gets brought up in like forums and threads and stuff, and like I say hello to people more than they say hello to me. Like I feel like I've gone completely the other way, where I'm almost paranoid about it now. Whereas where I wouldn't have bothered before, do you know what I mean? But like now I just say hello, and that's it. I'll just say hello, and yeah, I mean, it's fine either way. Like I actually gave some guy a free counselling lesson one game because he was really having a tough time with the diet, and
Oh, yeah.
I was in a particularly good mood at the time, and I was in a good headspace. You know what I mean? Like if I was in a bad headspace at that time, he might have got a load of verbal back from me going like, "What are you moaning about?" Blah blah blah. Like pull yourself together. But like again, it depends what like headspace I'm in, sort of thing.
Did you make a human connection, Dimmy?
Yeah, I mean the guy was alright. Like we're both playing Blood Bowl. We obviously share a common interest. Like I don't like dice weighing. Like if you're not gonna talk to me for 8 turns and then you're gonna go, oh, you've been so lucky.
Yep.
Like get out of my life. I don't want to talk to you. Like I
Yeah,
don't.
I've
Like,
always said,
you
because
know.
dice whining is one of those perennial topics, like timing people out,
Yeah.
like chatting and not chatting, that comes up time and time and time again. None of these are new, guys, by the way. Don't be surprised or
Yeah.
frightened by any of it. None of this is new. And I've always said about the dice whining, I'm as confused by someone that would spend an hour, and certainly if we were sat at a table, spend an hour or more with me playing a game where dice are such an important factor and they never crop up. It's like we're deliberately not mentioning them. It's like we're Dio.
Yeah,
We're
it's quite
pretending they're
funny, isn't
not
it? The
there.
first thing. Yeah.
But on the other hand, someone that's constantly like, oh, your dice have been better than mine, that person is awful and no one wants to spend any time with them.
Yeah, it gets draining. Yeah, it
So
gets
there's
really
times where people
draining.
go, oh, you're whining about the dice. And I'm like, no, I've just mentioned that dice exist. You know,
Yeah.
I've said mine haven't been quite as good as yours, have they? The fact that I'm winning 3-1 or whatever, you know, I'm just saying that because that's a statement of truth, but it's always taken as whining by some people. And I just think that sometimes you are just talking about the thing happening between you without it being whining. But yes, whining winds me the fuck up. Zach,
Speaking of whining,
Dimmy has formed human connections to people via the mechanism of Blood Bowl. Whilst challenging being better than him on the ladder, do you think you can match him as a human being and talk to someone by typing things on a keyboard? Is that, or is it unreasonable? And is it about this culture clash? And how do you feel about all of that? Because it's not, you know, you're a nice bloke.
I have a simple question I have to ask first. How much swearing am I allowed to do on your
Any
podcast?
amount, it's fine. This is adult content. I flag it as such.
No, fuck that. I'm a miserable bastard. I don't want to talk to people. I play Blood Bowl to get away from talking to people.
You stream it in public, so that makes a lot of sense.
But I'm not actually interacting directly with people while I'm playing the game.
Which is why it's a great stream with 3 people watching. Yeah, but so I see that
I
the person
mean-
you're playing, you want them as the faceless opposition. Is that?
They're the antagonist in this situation. There are
The
some
streamer
people.
is the protagonist.
Exactly. But there's. Oh, on mine apparently it's the other way around because my chat fucking hate me. But it's. I enjoy the aspect of streaming, but it doesn't necessarily mean that I want to interact with the people that I'm playing with.
Okay.
If I know the person or if I've spoken to them before, like I'll say hello. If it's someone like Dimmy, I was winding him up. I started trying to wind him up a bit when we were playing, and then he started winning, so I had to stop because it wasn't working. But it's, I don't know. I'm not really someone. Again, this might be because I used to play a lot of fighting games, and that's very much a one-on-one kind of. You'll be sat there on an arcade machine back in the 90s when they were actually a thing. You put your money in, you play against someone, you either win and you stay on, or you lose and then you fuck off. Occasionally, you'll have a conversation afterwards about like, oh yeah, you could have done this, or oh, did you know this? But not during the game.
I've got 2 key questions because I mean I get that about the human versus human element. I've always said there are things we can pull in from chess, from tennis, from billiards, from anything where there's a human versus human, because it's a different dynamic to a team sport. So firstly, is there anything notable that you would pull in from fighting games to Blood Bowl that you think is a direct, yeah, here's something we thought about in fighting games that I use in Blood Bowl that perhaps other people don't? I mean, one of my examples there is the EV that Dio uses from poker, which has been quite a useful term for some people in Blood Bowl. Or I sometimes use a forcing an error instead of an unforced error in that tennis terms, for when I'm basing something up trying to force an error. Rather than just doing something wrong, I'm making them do 8 dodges, hoping they get the turn ordering wrong or something like that, and that it gives me opportunities. Is there anything from fighting games that you can bring into Blood Bowl?
It's a bit of a kind of in a similar way. You want to force people to make an error because fighting games are a lot about the neutral game, trying to kind of just space things out until you get that hit.
So that translates quite well to things like Kislev and Elves, doesn't it?
Yeah. But the problem is a lot of that is more kind of based on your motor functions, and it's more of a physical, like using the arcade stick and actually positioning yourself correctly rather than a mental thing. It's more physical rather than mental.
Absolutely.
As much as mental comes into it, it kind of swings slightly more in that favour.
Yeah. And speaking of that, in terms of physical location, because there's people near you, does that come into play in terms of, is there jostling or who comes to it first? Is that?
I mean, it used to be like I remember back in the 90s. If you were in the arcade and you were playing, sometimes if there was a popular game, you would be a queue of people behind you. People would be jeering. They'd be right next to you, talking all kinds of crap, especially if they're friends with that person, or you get nudged in the back, and you kind of just become numb to it eventually. I suppose that is actually part of where my perspective on talking in games comes from. I'm in my bubble. You're not coming in.
Yeah, I wonder
I'll
if
say
that.
good game to you afterwards.
I wonder if that had some impact. Now, people say
Just a
I
quick one.
overtalk, and I do, and often I do say too much. But one of the reasons I asked that question at great length was to give Zakara some time to think about an answer to a question I hadn't warned him was coming up and was quite left field to things we've been talking about. And also, of course, to set him at ease, talking about something that, again, isn't about Blood Bowl, and getting him calm and comfortable in a subject I was obviously setting him up for a gag with. So, second question, did you used to take a stool?
There it is.
There we go. Dewey, you wanted to come in.
Yeah, all I want to say is we need to ban the phrase grats. Like,
Oh God!
honestly, just
Why?
ban grats.
What's wrong with
it's
grats?
Because
Grats
people-
is human interaction. It's showing you're
Oh
being nice
my
to
God.
people. It's saying congratulations on that successfully achieved drive. Well done.
It's
Well
like,
done. You managed to stall out for 7 turns when you had 4 players left. Congratulations. I bet that was really difficult.
Well, people feel like you should say grats to them, and I don't know why.
Yeah.
Like, so they're like,
No.
oh, like, but yeah, like for me, it comes across as like almost sarcastic and whatever. Like, I don't like grats. I'm never gonna say it to you and if I am saying it to you in chat, it's probably sarcastic and it's probably like come from a horrible place. So I do apologise if I say grats to you on Fumble. But
I think it's because
I'm
they've.
talking to Dimmy next time
Yeah,
we
that
play.
was-
Yeah, I'm
You're not-
dropping grats on everything he does right. Absolutely. I mean, I suffer from the fact that people hear me sarcastic. So when I drop grats in a game, or if I put a smile in a game, they think I'm being deeply sarcastic. When actually I'm usually just laughing at my bad luck, and I mean it.
yeah,
But because they've heard me ever, they just hear sarcasm in everything I do and say. Nick,
One thing I did want to put in quickly before
sorry,
we
Zach.
change
Yes,
back
come on
to
in.
culture.
And I
So,
genuinely meant it. I love that stuff about the first-person fighting. I've considered doing a One World, One Blood Bowl specifically on what can we bring in from other things. And poker and chess are obvious. Tennis less obvious, but I do think there's some real learnings there as well. So hearing that about fighting games, top stuff, mate. Good content. Thank you.
It's all right. But so there was a person that I've played. So the other day when I had my interaction with a good player who didn't like the fact that I wasn't the most communicative of opponents and decided to rant at me for a while, telling me that I should also ask for consent regarding streaming. Feels a bit weird, very outdated, but
Yeah.
I'm not gonna.
It
It's
does.
funny
It feels
because-
weird to ask for consent, Zach, and yet some people expect that.
But the game before, actually, I had an opponent who I'm not sure what team it was on, but on my LOS I made a mistake. I misclicked team reroll. I had a power and I misclicked into a 1 in 9, and as you can imagine, I was a little bit agitated.
Yes, yes.
mildly frustrated, shall we say.
Unproud.
Yeah, and my opponent was just like, I put a question mark in the chat, and I explained, and I was just like, well, that's shit, because then they just swarmed over the ball because it was on the LOS. The ball was quite short, and I just couldn't do anything about it afterwards. And at the end, I said, sorry for whining. I shouldn't have done because it was my own mistake. And they wrote in the match notes, game was ruined in the second half. Opponent accidentally misclicked team reroll, made it a bit unfun for both of us. And that kind of interaction made me actually think, oh, okay. So people on Fumble are more understanding, because a lot of people in the Blood Bowl 2 and Blood Bowl 3 communities would have been like, well, learn how to click better, idiot.
Yes. Is it true there's a slightly more social atmosphere on Fumble? Is that a thing?
Maybe. But then it was followed by the next person who was very much complaining that I wasn't giving them all of my time and attention for that day. And so I was just like, well,
Yep.
the world has balanced itself out as always. But I just wanted to put that out there.
You've met my wife. Nick, if we're talking about the toxic elite, those coming with their own culture and clashing with Fumble, creating waves and ructions. I mean, we haven't got Elliot here, so let's talk to you instead. How have you found arriving on the timeout button? Let's talk about the timeout button, mate. Let's not ask about it. Let's get straight to it. You timed someone out; they got cross. Would you do it again?
Yes.
There we are. Let's move on. As an admin, I think it's really important to say that we absolutely defend people pressing the timeout button at 4 minutes without any warning. It is there to allow them to do that in any competitive game, especially in any game that's part of a tournament, and all Black Box Trophy games should be considered part of a tournament. It should be expected that people will. If they don't, you should thank them for it, and then apologise for using more than 4 minutes in your turn, in my opinion. If somebody warns you ahead of time that they time you out at 4 minutes, that's great. That's very nice of them. They don't have to. You should expect them to do it anyway. So that is the admin line. We're really firm on that. It's there to be used. You used it. People got cross. How did that feel?
Weird. Because, I mean, every other game that I've played which has, like, multiplayer aspect, which is turn-based, generally has a timer. Modern games that I've... Well, they all do. And most of the time, when your turn's up, your turn ends in some way befitting to that game when your turn is up. In Fumble, the last player you activated, you can finish its activation. And then, in my mind, the turn's over.
But only because you've pressed a button.
Yeah, I mean, but when I reach the minutes and the little ding goes off, I finish activating my player, and I click end turn because my turn's over.
That is your choice. You've taken a choice there.
Yeah, in my mind.
In your gaming morality, that's the right choice, you think?
Indeed.
Have I persuaded you on gaming morality that it exists yet, by the way, in passing?
Yeah, probably.
Okay,
yeah,
good. Let's move on.
That's on PC, wasn't it?
So...
But on the social side,
yeah.
I did notice. I saw a message when I was spectating a game in client. Someone who quite active on Fumble was spectating a game of a Blood Bowl 2 person, and they mentioned the fact that nobody must chat on Blood Bowl 2 because all the Blood Bowl tours don't chat when they watch. And I think that is the case.
Yeah.
Like, we're not used to chatting in client. If we're having a social aspect or something like that, are we chatting on Discord or in Twitch
or Discord?
Or lots of
right.
But not in the client itself. In Blood Bowl 2, like if I played against, I played a few games against Store, who I consider myself good friends with. We caught up a bit earlier this year. I travelled over.
Store?
We played. Yeah, Store. I know. Of all the people to be friends with, right. I know. I've made some bad life choices.
Yeah, your life.
But like when we play games together, it's mostly just occasionally winding each other up in the chat. that would be it. And we've probably played some games where I've played games with people I consider good friends who I barely chatted with at all in the game. It seems culturally probably the thing. It is hard to convey your exact meaning across text and the feeling. Like you mentioned, people perceive you as sarcastic.
Always, 100%.
Dimmy doesn't like the grats because it comes across wrong to him.
Someone asked
But
in
it may be
Jack,
very-
does it bother you as much with a Z?
Oh wow! I'm not telling you. I'm not telling
Okay.
you.
but like it's definitely a cultural thing. Like the fact that like I mean Fumble does have a Discord, but I believe that's relatively new in Fumble's lifetime.
Well,
Most of the socializing would have happened on the client. Is that
no.
correct?
I mean,
No?
Fumble's been alive long enough that Fumble originally had an IRC.
Oh,
Jesus.
And we would all
Bit of
meet
throwback
on
there.
IRC, and we would arrange games on IRC. So you actually had to physically open a window with someone and say, "Hey, I've got these 3 teams," and they would list their, and you would arrange it on IRC. And there was a command you could type in that would call "look for game," BBLFG, Bullbot look for game, and it would list your teams that were available in the IRC, and other people could look at them and send you a message and say, "Oh, I'll play your Orcs," or "Oh, I'll play your Chaos," and that's how you found games before there was even a game finder. So then we moved
And was that
away.
a social
IRC
experience
died,
there?
and Game Finder, yes, 100%. There was chat all constantly and sub channels and a lively social community. Game Finder arose as IRC died off, and suddenly there was no social side to Fumble. And it was all done with private messages and with the Game Finder. And then Discord came in, and the IRC community sort of came back as a whole new thing. So we've been through it and back into it again. With IRC and Discord. So, yeah, 20 years will do that. You know, you're old enough that you've had those experiences. God, 20 years ago, the 3 of you were in nappies, weren't you?
I was under 10 years old.
Yeah.
Oh Jesus.
And Dimmy and Zach were sticky little teenagers, weren't they?
Well,
Yes.
Yeah.
I'm 29, so.
Oh, no, you were 9 too, yeah. Well, all Blood Bowlers are 29, yeah. So that was 1,000 years ago. Yes, and back then you didn't get journeyman, so if you had 3 players on your team, you had 3 players. There was a
Oh my
famous team
God,
called
that
famous team.
sounds
I don't want to
horrendous.
get too much into history. We'll hear about the future, but Star Trek NL, coached by a friend of mine called Rissage, a Dutch coach, would never fire players, and so he had 3 fit players, but he had about 11 or 12 on the team, but most of them had 2, 3, or 4 niggles. And
Yeah.
back then, as one of the inducements or one of the ways of matching teams at the start, it wasn't called inducements, handicaps. One of them was virus, where every player with a niggle didn't turn up to the game. And niggle meant you rolled a d6. And if you had 1 niggle on a 1, they didn't turn up. 2 niggles on a 1 or a 2, they didn't turn up. So his team would very often start the game with 2 or 3 players.
Did you send him a lot of invites for more games?
No, because he was a friend I wouldn't, Dimmy. And weirdly, you can look back through my history, because they're all there to be looked at throughout the history of Fumble. I don't prioritise uneven games, never have. Talking about that in competitive, I know you all slagged it off as an option. Chris is in chat now. He will tell you, if you look at the stats, the difference between the sort of win rates in open, in just selecting games in competitive, and in using the black box in competitive, is indistinguishable. As long as you're not picking the ridiculously stupid matches that some predatory people offer, then actually it doesn't really matter. You end up with the same sorts of games, the same sort of win stats. And the dubiousness on all of your faces, that remains a battle to be won another day. That's fine. Chris is in the chat. He's just told us that Fumble Discord started in 2016. So yeah, that perhaps wasn't the very start of Discord, but it's been around a while. And it was very much, for some of us, a return to that more social way of playing Fumble. Okay, so the customs, the mannerisms, the way we cook potatoes is slightly different, like it is the world over. That's an interesting thing, actually. If you go to every country, they cook potatoes slightly differently. Nick, timing out. Do you warn people now, or do you just kick the button? It's worth asking.
I do just click the button, but I will put in this phrase. When I've spun into rookie coaches, you're right, I don't, because they're obviously new to the site, and that's something I make sure to do. And of course, if someone says, "Oh, be right back. I just need to, check the kids, check the dog, check the door," or something of sorts, I'm happy to give them the time of day, sort of thing. But if you do take 4 minutes on a turn, which you know, I consider it the end of my turn when my turn reaches 4 minutes, and I
Yeah.
consider it for my opponents as well.
Are you hovering over the button, or do you wait for the ping and then look for it?
uh, I'm not actively thinking about it till I hear the ping.
Okay.
Generally,
Zach, are you a hover and click, hover and click?
I don't. I think I've pressed the button once so far, and that was with someone who just took the piss.
Dim?
And I even sat there and just said, I should just be pressing the button every single time it comes up. Because some
Yes.
people will just take the piss.
Yes, cats on fire is the term we've often used to cover all human emergencies that can't possibly be communicated. Some of which you can't even type, be right back. Because it literally is the cat on fire and you are dashing off to do it. But
Yeah.
obviously, if you can type "be right back" or you can disconnect the client, that's better. But sometimes you genuinely can't. And on Fumble, we do try and be quite human-centric. We do try and understand, and we try and be, as Nick is, at least nice to the benevolent to the newer players. Give them the time, try and explain a bit, try and point them in the 145 club's direction, or say, "You got any questions? Let me know." Particularly once you've scored the fourth touchdown. Dimmy, I can't imagine you're like this. Surely you chat away, you've filled pages of text, getting to know everybody. You're a man of the people. You're beloved by every human in Essex.
Yeah.
Have you become a chatter?
Uh,
Have you become a talker?
Not really. Like, so there's a couple of bits I actually really quickly want to say. So,
Yeah.
with the 4 minute time of I'm like I've got this own contract with myself. Like, if I take more than 4 minutes, I'll time myself out, and I'll just time out in 4 minutes regardless. Like, that's my own contract. I know I'm never going to hit 4 minutes because I'm never going to hit 4 minutes, but like, I promise, and if you see me stream and I hit 4 minutes and I don't stream, like, you need to shout at me and I will end the button. But like, another thing I want to say is, like, I also feel that the Fumble community and the Blood Bowl 2 community still haven't mixed on Fumble, right? So we don't really go into the Fumble Discord. I've made an effort to go into the Fumble Discord and try and have a little bit of a chat with people, like, because I'm normally
Yeah, I've
bored at
noticed. I've
work or
noticed.
whatever. So
We've cleaned it since.
yeah, so like, I actually make an effort, and likewise, like, if you come into my stream and like, you're from Fumble, like, I'm not gonna bite, I'm not gonna shout at you. I may moan about dice, I may like be a bit grumpy or whatever, but generally I'm not like there to piss you off or have a go at you. I love Blood Bowl, you love Blood Bowl, have a chat with me. Do you know what I mean? And like, I know Nick. I was a bit sad about the thread about Nick, because Nick's probably the nicest one out of the three of us, which is the irony of the
Though,
whole thing,
though
right?
that's a low bar. I mean,
It is,
it's we're
well,
not.
yeah, I agree with that. But like, yeah, like, honestly, like, if you're part of Fumble and you're worried about streamers, just come out and hang out in our chats and chat with us. Tell us what your problem is, or what you do and don't disagree. We'll tell you our point of view. We may not agree. Who cares? Like, it's whatever. But
So talking about
like,
empathy, there is some understanding from people playing you guys that you are trying to stream, trying to talk to your stream. That there is competition for your focus and attention. That's fair to say. Some people did say, you've no right to streaming without your permission. Newsflash, yes, they do. You'll find if you're on Fumble, your games are public to everybody. They're all on the games page. Anyone can watch. Anyone can stream them. You don't even have to play. You can stream other people's games. Who cares? It's not your business. If you're playing on Fumble, you play in public. I always used to, back in the heyday of Fumble, I would be playing a private game and have 40 spectators. Sometimes that's life. Do any of you feel you should warn people you're streaming when you spin into them? Is that a thing?
I warned the guy today, but that's because I read the 25-page thread. But other than that, no.
See, I'd be tempted to warn that one person just for the sake of being a dick about it.
Okay, that's a loving and supportive thing to say. Thanks, Zach. Nick?
Um, no, I coming from a culture of, I was on Twitch when Twitch was a baby. I grew up,
Justin TV.
yeah. So yeah, I've grown up with live streaming and that, and that's never been a part of the that's never been a part of any culture of streaming for me or anything like that. One of taking the piss out of streamers, potentially trolling the streamers, all good fun in my opinion. If you, winding up the streamers, if the chat and the streamer are public enemies, you know, that's a good fun.
Is this a generational thing? Back when the Sage
it might
first
be.
started, the great granddaddy, the pre-Jimmy Fantastic streamer and YouTubist of Blood Bowl. Back when he first started, he was a Fumble player. And on his second, I think it was, stream, he was playing me. And he streamed the entire game without telling me. And at the end of it, I did write, I forget if it was a forum post or a blog, saying, I don't mind being streamed, it's fine, you know, I live in public, that's fine. But I think he should have mentioned at some point, I'm streaming this game. Mainly because the things I said in chat, I might not have said if I'd known there were 50 other people on his stream watching, instead of just the number of spectators. I now think I was wrong, and that I mean, this was 10 plus years ago. In retrospect, I think I was wrong, and I just didn't see the way the world was going. That he was the new and I was the old. Is this the case? Are you just the new, and are the Fumble resistors the old?
I'm not thinking of it in that exact context.
I'm asking if you do. Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I think of it in that way, but for me, culturally, it seems to not be it's not a feature of streaming culture for me to be going, oh yes,
You're someone trying to avoid saying yes when everything about you saying yes, Nick.
When I think about it, when someone's saying, "Oh, you're on stream," it feels like to me as if I'm advertising my stream. To say I'm playing UPC.
Yeah.
The way it comes across to me is that I'm advertising my stream to you because I would like to raise my viewer count for some reason, which comes across as maybe
Money
a
grab.
little bit
By that one.
money grab, bit desperate, maybe.
Okay.
So to that's how it comes across to that action of me sharing that, hey, I'm on stream, I'm streaming, and even if it's under the, in my mind, it looks like a facade of me saying, oh, are you okay with this, etc. It feels like, oh, me being an advertising, it feels like a greedy, selfish action. It feels actively wrong to me to do.
I certainly don't advocate giving them the choice as to whether you stream. I mean, that's not their choice. But could you just say, look, heads up, by the way, I stream this game, so if I don't chat, that might be why, or,
I chat the same amount as I would be if I wasn't streaming.
So none at all, yeah.
Yeah, I think like what you said. Yeah.
But I say my good luck, have fun. I say my GGs. I
Yeah.
had a good chat with my GLT opponent, particularly after our game. And a little bit during as well. I think it was I messed up my one turn attempt a little bit, and we had a little chat about that. And he's like, "Oh yeah, if you did this," I was like, "Oh yeah, I probably should have done that."
But you are all finding there's that little bit more sociability on Fumble, even if it's post-game finishing.
Yeah, that was a good game with which had some stakes to it, obviously qualifying for a tournament.
Yeah.
But I would have on Blood Bowl 2, if there was some similar tournament, like a Chalice game,
you'd have chatted as well.
I probably would have had similar amounts of chatting. Like I'm not at this level of some people like to write a sentence on how they feel about every single turn that happens, and I don't feel I enjoyed that 2 dice block. I'm like, oh well, okay, you got to push. You wanted a pout, okay, cool. Did I need to know that? Maybe not. It feels a little overwhelming to me.
Like my cousin that Facebook's about buying broccoli. Sometimes there is oversharing, isn't there?
See, when someone's like that on Fumble, it makes me want to just turn around to them and say, well, why don't you stream so you can tell people this? Because I don't give a fuck.
Yeah. Like, that's
I
the one
stream
thing
so people listen to me there.
Some of the best conversations I've had in Fumble have been when I've been a spectator in client talking to the other spectators. Like I've genuinely got like, because when no one's streaming, like I want to watch Fumble all day, like, and when no one's streaming, I will go into client, I'll look for a player that I think is particularly good, and I'll jump in there, and then I do like me noises, so I'll give it an ooh, and I'll give it a laugh, and I'll give it
Ooh,
all that
that's gotta
stuff,
hurt.
and then
Best
people
sounding
just
best sounding
That
gaming.
sounds
yeah.
familiar
It
to
is
one
best
in
sounding
Fantasy,
gaming. That
so
one,
Yeah.
I've
Nick.
got an
Yeah, that's very
imitation.
good sound.
Yeah. Yeah,
And then people like I've got chatting to like at least 2 or 3 people in the actual client spectating the game, like, and like I mean I'll have a chat with
That's
you. Do you know
probably
what I
why
mean?
you're
It's
invited to all the WhatsApp groups and I'm not. Yeah, look, I do think there's that. Look, we are running out of time. This has been a really fun one, but I do want to touch on something else before we. I mean, we're nearly at the 2 hours now, guys. So if you need to disappear, do let me know. But I'm really enjoying this. You've also met the 28 races. I mean, to obviously Zakara's great chagrin, Slan, Kislev are unofficial. So if you play any NAF tournaments on Fumble, you can have them. They're there and available for you. And if you
Yeah.
play in, if you want to come and play in the 145 and help me school some of the newer players, you'd all be welcome, by the way. Do feel free to come and do that if that's something that interests you. Or just be there and answer questions. You don't even have to play. You can just help by answering questions. All 28 teams, what have you learnt by launching into this new world of the 2020 rules? What's your takeaways from that for the world out there that's got right to the end of this mammoth podcast? What gold do you have for them in your experienced public toxic elite knowledge of Blood Bowl? What have you mined out of the arrival of you in the 2020 rule set? Nick,
Leveling in 2020 is shit.
okay. Think we might have learned that before you, Zach, but thank you for reinforcing that. You've not been enjoying it. Even with the randoms, even, hey, let's have a random.
Don't get me wrong, the dopamine from the random is fun, but it's just if you're actually building a team, there's no fun to it anymore, really. Blood Bowl 2, you can go and you can roll claw, you can roll block, you can roll doubles, you can roll stats. You don't save up 20 SPP to go, oh well maybe I'll roll plus strength. It's it's lost a lot of the fun. And that's why I play Blood Bowl, is for the fun, because it certainly isn't to be good.
Diddy, let's bring you in on this. What's your learning, mate? What has 2020 and
I,
the 28 teams taught you?
I've grown an adverse fear of snotlings. I cannot stand them.
Have you worked
I
out what the
hate
bloody
them.
hell to do about them yet?
If I never see them again, I'll be the happiest man in Blood Bowl. I've got no idea how to
No.
play against them, mate.
No.
They're horrendous.
Does
Like
anyone?
it's not Blood Bowl. It's not Blood Bowl. It's just random BS. Like to 1,000, and I normally come on
Did
the
you ever play
worst
the
side of it.
original Red Dead Redemption?
Yeah,
I really enjoyed that. I love being a cowboy. I bought a PlayStation 4 to play it. Maybe that was Red Dead Redemption 2. So I bought something to play the first one. Played it through, really loved it. And then they released this DLC for it, which turned it into a zombie survival horror game.
yeah.
And I quite enjoyed that. But that's how I feel about Snotlings. It takes Blood Bowl to a place that Blood Bowl isn't normally at. It becomes
Yeah,
a...
exactly. Yeah, it's just
So there we
nonsense.
are. Snotlings make me feel of a zombie survival horror game version of Blood Bowl. That's as the
Yeah.
14 of them or 18 of them bear down on you with all their monstrous evil. So other than fearing Snotlings, what else? What's your
Okay,
takeaways?
so I finally stopped waking up in cold sweats thinking about Cindy, which is really nice.
What
And
sort of cold sweats were those, mate? That's
bombers in general. I shouldn't
because
have
we
said
can put
Cindy, but
Zakara in a little baker's hat and he'll be there.
no man, like the bombers were outrageous. But yeah, like genuine. Like I'm not too bothered about the leveling system, honestly. Like I think it's different. Like, do I think it's as good as the old leveling system? No. But do I like the fact that it is different and there's something else to do. Like I hate the injury table. I despise the new injury table with a passion. Not like I mean I probably prefer the old leveling system, but this one's fine. And then the multiple rerolls per turn is a bit weird. So, but like as a whole, it's it's almost like for me, Blood Bowl 2020 and Fumble and everything. It's almost Blood Bowl. It's almost good Blood Bowl. Like it's not quite there, but it could be worse, and
Nick,
it was worse.
Nick, I do want to come to you on this and stay on this and be on this a few more minutes, but I do want to point out, Krista has just dropped in chat. Did you know that when you random roll your skill selection, the skill is picked before the dice roll animation happens? That's all just flim flam.
What?
It's show. Does that worry you? Does it bother you?
My dopamine.
Is there any way to see?
You're
the
being
skill
manipulated,
before?
Zach. You're being
So,
manipulated, mate.
My shattering gutter runners were predestined.
They were.
Is that maybe more the fact they didn't roll block or wrestle?
Yeah, like how
That was
long?
Because the second you hit that button, it's decided. All of the rolling animation, it's already decided, mate. It's happened in the background.
No, it's not decided.
It's not a
before you
loading
hit
screen.
It.
No,
just
it's
a
not
fun.
decided before you hit the button.
Oh, okay.
Krista
I was
has
not decided before you. Oh,
no,
I
Krista's
see.
only pre-decided that I get 5% worse rolls than everyone else. The rest of it is all absolutely fine. But the minute you press that button, it's decided. But then you see those dice roll, and that's a lie. He's just delaying telling you what he already knows.
Well, that's fun. I like whimsy. I like that.
I mean, Blood Bowl 3 could learn something from that, couldn't they? Like,
Well, there we go. Out of the mouths of babes and innocence. Nick, let's come back to you on this. What's your big takeaways from Meeting 2020?
Meeting 2020. A lot of it stems from the multi rerolls per turn. Taking space on offense is less important in my because we can kind of force things through with the last couple turns.
So if we're keeping the rerolls dry, we can lower the priority of the space because we can
the
grab it
priority of
later.
moving up the field because we can roll 5 rushes on turn 7 because we've got 3 rerolls, right?
Sorry, we couldn't before.
Oh, mere mortals, maybe perhaps.
No one told me. Yeah, I was going to say no one told me, but all right.
Yeah, but yeah, that sort of thinking, being more proactive. Like you probably have to be a little more proactive on defense because of that, which I'm not sure how I feel about. Like the fact that you don't like holding space on defense and having good shapes and all that is a little less important, and you might have to be, make things happen a little more forcing.
I remember one of my very first games of 2020. I put up a lovely elf curtain all the way across, 2s, 4 apart, 2 more, 4 apart, 2 more. Thought, what you going to do? I even had them 2 back, knowing that jump can work. So they weren't right next to each other, so you could knock over and jump through. I had them 2 back. And it was against dwarves. I thought, you're doomed. Knocked over my first one, and 4+4+3+ through, using a re-roll. I didn't have dodge. You had a re-roll for all 3 dodges. He'd kept all 3 dry.
Dirty.
And he used it on the first 2 and didn't on the 3+, so he had 1 spare when he went in and got the winner. And I just went, that's brilliant. I need to completely relearn Blood Bowl. And things that were safe aren't as safe anymore, and that's kind of cool to me. Did you have those moments? Races like Snotlings. Any other races? Any other moments? Did jump ruin your day or make your day? Have you been loving the pile
jump.
driver? Swear by armbar?
The more I learn about jump, or the more I learn the game, the more jump is exciting me. I've found a very much belovedness of Pro, the new Pro. As I ran, I on my Skaven team, I took sidestep and then random generals on my gutters in the attempts to, of course, get lots of skills on my gutters. I ended up with lots of Pro shattering gutters. Shattering, I was not such a fan of, but the Pro, I found such a love for as a shitty random skill.
It's 2/3 of everything else, isn't it?
Yeah, and I discovered when my gutter runner won the dodge because he couldn't use dodge on a blitz attempt, on a blitz action, that I could click Pro, and he made it through fine and caught the ball, and I was like, oh, go Pro, that's very good. I was very excited about that.
So people talk about Pro being a kill skill now because it's useful as part of that Mighty Blow, Tackle, possibly even Claw kill stack. Mm-hmm. Are you saying Pro should be on everything?
I think Pro is like one of the best randoms to hit in a few things. It does complicate your turn ordering a bit because you're like, well, I'd like to pro that dodge because I don't want to use a team reroll here for whatever reason, or I'd like to pro that hit instead of using a team reroll, and then like I can do an uphill, or 2 dice against block, and I can reroll one of them, and I can keep my good result. It makes things a little more complex.
It really does, yeah.
And on top of all that good stuff with, kill stacks and all that.
Anyone had the triple choice? Where you roll some dice and it says, do you want to use Brawler, Pro, or a reroll on this?
Oh, I haven't had that yet. That'd be exciting.
Trust me, when you look at that, you go, well, yes, but which one?
Can you pro one and Brawler the other, or is that not allowed? I'm not sure.
I don't know.
I think you're only allowed to use one at a time.
I think it's only you can only re-roll the dice in a dice pool once.
In the dice pool once. Okay.
So I think it's only one that creates an action within the dice pool, but don't quote me on that. I might well be wrong.
Okay, yeah. I'll find out when I inevitably play some Blackhawks, I guess.
What if you've got Frenzy Pro Brawler? Can you Brawler the first one into a push and then Brawler the second one, like both down?
And unfortunately, that's all we've got time for. I am not the beard you seek, Dimmy. We should get Candlejack and probably Mike Davis on for things like that. There are some stacks that, even with the best Everata in the world, is very hard to know. So if you've got a pro jump up vampire with Bonehead because of Nuffles Brer, who's trying to hypno-gaze something.
Oh my god!
And he used pro on his jump up from the floor when he's
Who knows, right? I mean, what order did you roll any of those in? And my answer is I have no idea, which is why I don't coach vampires.
Oh my god, I just never want to see him.
I feel like that just created a nosebleed that's just waiting to happen, just hearing all of that.
Now, we did have some exciting news today, just before we finish. So Warhammer Community had a Blood Bowl release in their weekly release, and all that happened is Underworld and Chaos Pact have moved into being Blood Bowl products and not Forge World products. So there's the exciting news for this week.
Does that mean they're cheaper or something? Or what?
No.
It just means they've made some more of the sprues.
Yeah.
Oh, I thought Forge World meant they were more expensive.
Forge World, it tends to be more rare and a little more expensive, yeah.
Yeah, it's because it's the resin kits, isn't it?
That's also one of my hot takes from learning Blood Bowl.
Underworld.
Is Underworld are pretty good?
Underworld are pretty good, you think? Yeah, okay.
Yeah. I mean, people told me they were pretty good, but they didn't say, hey, Nick, they're pretty good.
Pretty good, like
they're not pretty good.
Oh,
They're
pretty good, like 5% better than everything else in the current rule sets.
Yeah, something like that.
Something like that. Yeah, okay.
It's wild. Yeah.
Underworld.
I don't know why none of you guys figured this out before I came along, but
thanks for the insight, Nick. I'm going to bear that in mind.
Are Underworld really good?
Yes.
Or is having 14 players really good? If you take away the
both.
14 players,
both,
Underworld
really both.
Good.
I would love to find out. To me, that's the nerf they're missing.
I don't think they're that good without it.
Take Snotlings off them.
Gutter runners are pretty good. Movement 9 is pretty damn
right.
good.
They've got the Gutter Runner, they've got the Storm Vermin, they've still got the mutation access, they've still got great inducement access, they've still got cheap bribes, they've still got goblins that can go just about anywhere. Take the damn Snotlings off them, and hence they won't have swarming and they won't have Snotlings. And let's see what they can do as that. And I think they'll be fine. I don't think they'll be necessarily number 1, but I still think they'll be top 3 or 4. I think they'll be fine without Snotlings. That would be where I'd start. Let's see how that goes. And then maybe build a little more back in or something. But
Speaking of gutter runners, something that did make me laugh is I managed to mess up the Skaven 1 turn on Fumble because I'm playing it landscape because I'm
streaming.
I'm streaming, so it doesn't look like tiny. So I was like, okay, I'll play it like that. And I was saying, I need to tilt my head like this in order to 1 turn, because otherwise I can't actually do it. My brain just refuses to put the things in the right place.
There are times at tabletop tournaments, Zach, where I stand up so I can look down on the table.
Yeah.
Okay? So I know I say I can lie in bed and I can play Blood Bowl on the ceiling, and sometimes I can. But sometimes in a really tough situation, you go back to your default. And my default is side to side, top down, because that's what I learned on Fumble. And your default will always be end to end, more or less top down, but slightly behind, because it was Blood Bowl 1 and 2.
Yep, and just uh, even Dimmy said, "Oh, one of my favorite quotes from Dimmy to me is, oh, you're pretty good at one turn, Zach. It's a shame about the other 7."
I said now we just need to work on the other 7.
Yeah, fine. So, but the fact that then I managed to mess up a movement 9 one turn that was unopposed because my brain was just like, so where do I put the players? Who do I hit with?
Yeah, it
Where,
took a
who?
while.
What goes where? It just made me laugh that that's such a difference in Blood Bowl 2 to Fumble, playing landscape. And I didn't think it would be that much different until I tried doing it. And I was like, my brain refuses to do it. So now, yeah, every time I one turn, I'm like that. Like, right, where do I?
Well, look, as we proved in another episode of One World, One Blood Bowl, if you look at your rulebook very carefully, the only times the board is shown, it's obvious they are playing on the two opposite sides of the board, not end to end. I get why in tabletop tournaments we play it end to end. That makes sense there, and that's become the default way online to some degree. But I will go to my grave saying that Blood Bowl was originally created to be played with people sat on either sides of the board. That's how board games are played. It's what you're used to, mate, and
Yeah.
it's great to be able to move to different UIs, to be able to use the different ways of looking at it. Fundamentally, the game stays the same, and all three of you have proved that to yourselves by moving over to the new client and the new user interface. We do need to wrap up. That's been 2 massive, massive hours of really fun podcasts. Thank you for that. And I know I've taken some banter about poor Zachary Zakara and his playing, but all three of you are fabulous at your Blood Bowl. You've been really welcome on Fumble. It's been great to have you there and to have the streams there and to have Fumble shown to the world as the way of playing fantasy football online with all its customizable, all its options, all its variations. I think it's interesting that the communities have struggled to gel a little bit, and I'm still not sure they have. I mean, One World, One Blood Bowl's been about that from the very start, about saying, look, we all do the same thing, but we do it slightly differently. And I think there's as much a need for Fumble to understand that you guys, have your competitions, your pressures, well, apart from Zach, your chat asking for content and for you to do things. And that to understand that you've got those pressures too, as well as, you to understand that on Fumble, yeah, okay, you don't have to mention timing out. It's your right. But some people are used to the fact that most people will give them a warning if they're going to time out. Doesn't mean you have to. But you need to understand most people do. And if that's something you choose not to, that's fine. But there is these cultural differences. Lately, because I'm not very good at my job, I've tried to get better at it. And so I've taken to finishing the show with, what is the answer to the question I should have asked but I haven't bothered yet? So when talking about streamers coming to Fumble, playing the new 2020 rule set with all 28 races available, about the beautiful black box trophy, about the customizable Fumble client, what is the thing you think I should have talked about or asked about that I haven't done so yet? And then after that, we're going to say our goodbyes. Zach, you're swinging side to side, looking wistful and sad.
That's my I'm tired and trying to use my brain
Well,
face.
thank you for staying up with us. Dimmy, anything spring to mind?
42.
Yeah. My son recently read the trilogy, and I pointed out there's more than 3 books. He went, oh, no. He's 14. Reading is a bit weird for him. Nick, anything I should have talked about or asked, but I haven't?
I mean, I think it's quite interesting in that everybody who's streaming Fumble is streaming it in their own unique sort of way, and there's not really a universal viewpoint. There was someone who was talking to me in my Discord the other day about what if that we had some sort of universal marking system? You know how we mark G for guard or something, so that people could do it, and it kind of came along to the discussion that's not super practical.
Because everyone else's is terrible. Mine's brilliant. If we used
mine's brilliant. Everyone else has a bad one, right? Yeah,
that's the problem.
But it's interesting, right? From a viewer or a streamer's perspective, and what is there things that we should be doing around this? Is there things that like Rick goes and raids Elliot, and they might have some similar setup things. They might, then, I mean, it's not quite as big of a jump as Rick raiding me, and I've got my circles on and whatever, but, they've got a different setup. The screen looks slightly different to the viewer. Where do I look to see the team rerolls? They're normally down the bottom corner when I'm looking in client, but then Elliot's cropped his to over here. It's an interesting space which is all exploring, and I wonder, like, because with a lot of the streamers have come from this Blood Bowl 2, it's like, oh, I captured the screen.
Yeah.
To this place where it's like, well, to make it look, presentable on stream, we have to do a little bit of a little cut, little trim, little edge and end, and some people like Eliod have put like an exceptional amount of effort into making the stream look as presentable as possible. It's an interesting.
Every time you say,
anyone has any good answers about,
every time you say the word
things
presentable,
look good?
it's like a dagger in my heart. The Fumble client is beautiful as it is. Having to do anything to it in order to show it to other people is like telling me my children should wear masks. It's that painful. But I get where you're coming from. It's about the utility of what is being put out by Fumble in terms of the viewer experience on a stream.
Into the view, it's perfect. Like
I get it, but you are telling me my child needs to wear a mask.
If we're putting them on like a stage or something, they can. Yeah,
You've seen.
If you're showing them to other people,
you
you probably should cover their face or something.
Basically, Nick, are you saying, can you make the in-game client fit a stream perfectly?
I'm not saying
the
thing from a Fumble side. No.
I mean, it's an interesting question because I haven't
have any good solutions.
I have heard Krista talk about specifically. We had a Unity client project before the 2020 rules were launched. And he specifically talked about the need for that to be a streamable client, that's where he saw gaming as going. And full sizable, full screenable, and streamable. So I think that tension is there. I think we're aware that the product that Fumble puts out, great as I think it is, usable, visibly easy to use, great user interface. I think the stuff CandleJack's done to the client is amazing. I think it could easily be more streamable. If it was built from the ground up, you would build it that way. With different dimensions and things in different places to make it a more streamable thing.
It needs to be that shape. Right?
But remember, this
I wasn't even
this
saying
is
from like
20-year-old tech that we're dealing with here that's been evolving over all of that time.
Yeah, exactly.
Like mine is stretched. Even Krista said the other day when he saw mine, he said it looks not quite right
because you stretch it to the width slightly, don't you?
Yeah, and I could cut it so it's more square and kind of fits nicer, but it's the best way I can play it at the moment.
Yeah, like everyone's gone and found their own different solution to how they'd like to, how they're going to do it, which creates an interesting.
And as I've said, yours
for a viewer,
means I open the client in front of yours because I find it so difficult to watch
as much as possible. Yeah.
No, because I want to be on your stream and I want to see the chat. So I have the client, so it's covering the visible bit of the client, and I still see the chat up the side. It means obviously I can't do anything like subscribe, but I never would anyway, so that's not a problem. I do have one final question then. So here's your closer for 10, and then I'll do a quick outro, and we are done. I promise. It's mammoth episode, but it's been fun, and thank you guys. And as Zach pointed out, we're a gang that used to all play Among Us together back during the lockdown.
I mean, Zach's waiting to sit down, PC.
If it feels like shots fired.
Three more questions. Just three more questions.
If it feels like we're old friends chatting, there's a slight reason why. It's because we used to chat a lot as it was. So my one remaining question for each of you, just as a way of just closing it out. If we were to turn Fumble off tomorrow and you had to go to Blood Bowl 3, there's currently 13 teams available. We missed it in passing. The new one out for Blood Bowl 3 with their Season 1 launch is Lizardmen. I think one of the reasons they're doing quite badly, the new players were Lizardmen. Secretly, I think they're a terrible team for new players, particularly with multiple rerolls. Because as Lizards, early on in their run, you're going to have to face a lot of 1 in 9s, a lot of both downs, and take the bad dice. And I don't think new players are going to do that. I think new players are going to burn through their rerolls in the first couple of turns, then find they've got no rerolls, and they're still rolling a load of both downs and 1 in 9s.
But it
And I
doesn't
think
matter,
new
PC.
players are going to lose time and time again because
It
of that.
doesn't matter because you can lose time and time again. It matters
Because you
nothing.
can restart,
And then-
yes.
No, not the restart. It's the SR
Infinite
thing.
amount of games.
You go 0-0-15 and then you start building it. You can't lose elo until you get out of bronze. So like honestly, you could build the perfect lizard team in bronze and then go on a win streak. Like it's
Yeah.
crazy.
I know it had 15 losses. I couldn't keep that team. But
No, I couldn't,
I
yeah, I
accept
wouldn't,
that it's built, the ladder's built in a way that you can. So my question is, if you had to do that tomorrow, that would mean 15 teams that you might have to wait 4 years to get hold of. Which one would you miss the most? Either to face or to coach as? Which of the teams not yet in Blood Bowl 3 do you really think, God, that's one of the things I really love playing on Fumble, or facing on Fumble? There's a closer for you.
I was going to say I already know my answer, but
Well, there we are. Let's come to you, Zach.
No, because it's not on Fumble either.
It is, but it's only there in NAF style. Play the next NAF tournament on Fumble, and you can be the jumpy frogs. But they will be jumpy frogs. They won't be dressed as Cossacks.
Even then, that's fine. But
so what of the teams that actually do exist in the game of Blood Bowl would you miss if you went back to Blood Bowl 3 alone? Is it Snotlings, Dimmy? Do you secretly love them?
I can't pick. Like I've got to pick two.
All right,
and,
give me them.
The boring answer is Undead.
Okay.
The fun answer is Khemri.
That's your fun answer? Jesus.
Yeah, I love Khemri. I really like Khemri. I really enjoy Khemri.
And that's why he gets invited to a lot of parties. Nick, what would you miss?
Wood Elves have been my favorite team since I've started playing Blood Bowl, and
now second only to Underworld.
Yeah, I mean now suddenly Underworld and Amazons are suddenly becoming my most favorite. But like Wood Elves do hold a special. You know, I do love have a special place in my heart for war dancers, overpowered as they are. Wood Elves.
Okay, Dimmy getting a lot of love from Krista with their mutual love of the Khemri. Zakari, you've had the thinking time. What would you miss?
Probably either dwarves or high elves, I'd go with high elves just because they're the big elves, right? You play them for long enough and they become the big boys.
Right, thank you very much, gentlemen. Look, this has been super long, so if you've stayed with us, really, really well done. But I enjoyed talking and spending time with all three of these lovely people, which is why I was teasing Zach. You should know I do value him. He is quite small, but he's quite good at Blood Bowl, and we don't give him enough credit for that, and he doesn't give himself enough credit for that.
You don't know. You haven't met me in person how short I am.
He isn't very tall, though. And it's lovely having all three of them on. And I think the message, I didn't want this to be a shouty one or an exciting one. I wanted to talk about the 2020 rules with three guys who I know their Blood Bowl and know what they're talking about, and have really met Fumble and this new client and this new rule set all at the same time. They're not here to frighten us. They're not here to take over. They're not, here to date your daughter and take your taxation. It's not a proper migrant crisis in that way. They're here. It's not because they don't have anywhere else to go. It's not because their viewers are driving them or they just desperately need content to stream. Mostly they're here because they're enjoying the competition. They love their Blood Bowl, and we've got a good Blood Bowl, and they're here trying to play that with us. So that's fantastic. We should be welcoming to them. And we should understand that this is the future. Look at these three lovely young men. They play good Blood Bowl and they stream while they're doing it because that's the world they grew up in. That's the world they understand. And if we're too old or too stuck in our ways on Fumble to accept that and to accommodate them, to make them welcome, then perhaps it's time that Fumble stopped and something else started. Something that is for younger people. Because I don't want to be stuck in a dead end full of dying old people all pretending to be 29 when they're actually 59. I want young people to be enjoying it. I want them to be coming to Fumble and going off and playing their whizzy 3D things and, sucking on avocado toast as they play with a fidget spinner. But I want them here enjoying Fumble as well. And if these guys are, I think that's absolutely wonderful. I think it's an asset to us and to the community. And that's it for One World, One Blood Bowl, episode 39. I hope you've enjoyed it. I've loved having you here. And I hope you'll be back in a couple of weeks when we do this again. Everyone wave and say goodbye. Gives me an easy point to find in the edit. Hooray!
Bye.
Thank you, Zach. And now let's see if we can find somewhere to raid you on to.